Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where socially awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Sorry we're late. It's kind of on both of us. Me, because I showed up later than I probably should have, and Brainstormer, because we got going back and forth brainstorming ideas for the Lionhearted, and now here we are.
Yep. Just getting like somewhat of a catch up, and also some new stuff. Basically, it's kind of nothing really planned because really nothing big happened this week.
And next week is our 7-year anniversary.
Yeah, and we still need to discuss that because there's we'll discuss. You and I can discuss that later.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like it can only be really like one. Well, obviously we're gonna do video responses, but I'm still unsure about which one. I know we got some still on the back burner we need to finish, but there was something I found that I mentioned to Dalton a while back, and I think it's worth covering. And Dalton is gone. I'm gonna call it. He forgot to charge his phone, so we're gonna give.
Sorry, my phone decided it was going to throw a hissy fit for no reason.
Okay, I literally just guessed it was you forgot to charge your phone, but that's...
No, it's on the charger, but it decided it was going to be weird for some reason.
Always technical issues. But yeah, we'll figure that out when we get to there. Okay, hold on, let me check, see if it's... pretty much all the articles Dalton sent.
Mm-hmm.
Because he loves to make me not like shit.
You are in charge of finding the good things. I find the other stuff. This is we've been doing this for almost 7 years. This is how it works.
Fuck, 7 years.
It doesn't feel right to me either.
It feels like both, like, we didn't start this that long ago, but also
like we've been doing it forever. It's this weird thing of like it should either be much shorter or much longer, depending.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's originally from Deadline.com or Deadline.com. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. Elon Musk. This was published February 1st, 2026. We had originally intended to do this about like 2 weeks ago. But
shit kept getting pushed back or rescheduled or blah 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 blah. Forget you guys know how it works.
Yeah. Elon Musk meta thought of the Odyssey as... I feel like it's a bit hyperbole, isn't it? Like hyperbolic. I mean,
I also was upset with Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey for, well, being a Christopher Nolan movie instead of an Odyssey adaptation, first and foremost. But we shall see, I suppose.
I think that's just, to be fair, I think we're in a kind of middle ground for a lot of things like this. Mainly because I think we both agree it's so much... When we had this discussion when we first watched the trailer for it, right? There are only two ways you can really do like an adaptation of like one of the oldest like literary stories out there, which is either you commit to like historical, like you full sail commit to a historical accuracy, or you make it as
Lean into
fantastic.
the otherworldly aspects.
Yeah.
And to be fair, you can do both of those things without necessarily contradicting the other.
No, I do think there's far more challenge to that in trying to make sure both aren't either clashing or have a symbiosis, but it is possible. You just need to be really, real. You gotta find that line very, very.
And unfortunately, it feels like Christopher Nolan decided to do neither.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I'm always going to say this. I don't really care about the race of the actor of an actor as long as they embody a character, you know. Which I feel like is how it really should be most of the time, but c'est la vie.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen somebody take a stab at doing a Greek or at least Hellenistic accurate The Odyssey, but
yeah, that's fair. I think the obvious issue there is there aren't a lot of like Greek American actors or actors, Greek actors who could possibly do well.
But I'm of all the problems I have with Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, the race isn't really one of them.
Yeah.
It's just yet another tab on the pile of things that they should have thought of before letting Christopher Nolan of all people direct The Odyssey. Because this is the fundamental thing. Christopher Nolan is one of the least imaginative motherfuckers on the face of the planet when it comes to his sort of cinematic aesthetic. And so you're going to give him an ancient Greek adventurer's epic containing probably the most like mythological and surreal fantasy elements of any story in the entire fucking Western canon, and you're giving it to the guy who treats everything like a war biopic. Why? And yes, I am going to be extra salty here and point out you could have just gotten someone to do an adaptation of Epic the Musical. Like if you wanted a modernized TM version of the Odyssey, Epic the Musical exists. And frankly, I don't care if you decided to do it as animated or live action in that case. Doing an adaptation of Epic the Musical would be infinitely preferable to the bullshit of letting Christopher Nolan turn the Odyssey, one of the greatest mythological epics in Western history, like the generic fucking basic bitch war movie he turns everything into. Moving on.
As moviegoers await the IMAX epic that is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, some are already ripping apart the film, chiming in on speculation that Lupita Nyong'o. I'm sorry, I'm not good with names unless I hear them first, and I'm not even sure if that's the right pronunciation. Will play Helen of Troy in the star-studded adaptation of Homer's epic poem, which premieres July 7th. Really? July 7th? Huh. I thought it was later.
Yeah, it's apparently going to be an early birthday present for me. I really wish I could return this particular birthday present in advance, but why? Anyway, so yeah, Lupita Nyong'o being Helen of Troy. I'd like to see somebody who could embody the like Trojan beauty that is Helen of Troy. And even as far as black actors go, Lupita Nyong'o isn't that pretty. Like, she's pretty, but she's not the face that stops 1,000 ships or launches 1,000 ships pretty. And that's basically the whole fucking assignment with Helen. She's supposed to be so unnaturally beautiful that various gods fell for her.
I mean, she does. I'd say she's pretty good looking.
She's not bad looking, and I'm sure they'll do whatever tricks they need to with makeup and maybe even CGI to make her even more beautiful. It's just, like, again, at risk of sounding like a petty motherfucker, that is the entire fucking assignment with Helen, is she has to be beautiful enough that you can see why several gods, not to mention every significant human king of the region, immediately fall for her on sight. Like again, normally beauty not the highest of priorities, but when you're talking about Helen of freaking Troy, it's a large part of the assignment. It's kind of like why casting Rachel Ziegler as Snow White makes everyone go, huh? Because she's, of course, not Caucasian, and therefore she can't really be called the. Anyway, we've treaded that ground before, but yes. Point being, when you're dealing with an actor playing Helen of Troy, you do need to be a petty little bitch about it, because she's supposed to be beautiful enough that gods and mortal kings alike fall at her feet, basically on sight. Moving on.
All right. All right. Which brings July 17th. Elon Musk questioned the writer/director's integrity, responding on X to someone who argued Helen in the book is fair-skinned, blonde, and the face that launched 1,000 ships because she was so beautiful that men started a war over her, calling the unconfirmed cat. Okay, it's unconfirmed. An insult to the author. Musk took aim at Nolan.
See, most of the characters in Greek mythology have brown or black hair because of the way, Mediterranean fucking physiology works. I don't recall Helen being confirmed as blonde in the original. I guess it kind of depends on the translation, but I don't recall her being described as being blonde. Either way, she, again, Lupita Nyong'o is pretty, but she's not face that launched 1,000 ships pretty. Frankly, the most sensible answer to the Helen of Troy problem, given, the modern slate of actors, would be Gal Gadot. And yes, I know it's a cliche, but I mean, if we're playing the game, she's a modern day Israeli with fucking Greek ancestry, so it wouldn't be very hard to understand why people were fighting over Gal Gadot. But yeah, as much as I agree with Elon here, I don't recall Helen being confirmed as blonde ever. If someone can point me to a fucking line or verse reference of the Odyssey where it confirms that she has golden hair, I will stand thoroughly corrected, but I don't recall her being confirmed as blonde anywhere in the Odyssey. Moving on.
Hey, Giantro, good to see ya. Hey, I'm here sort of from the start, going to drive through, catching up, so can't comment for a bit. Hope you guys... I'm doing fine. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing okay.
Alright, Chris Nolan has lost Target, wrote Must on the platform he owns. Although Young joined the cast in November 2024, her character in the Odyssey has not been yet confirmed. Okay, well then I feel like it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah?
Here's the thing. I could see, like, assuming that Lupita Nyong'o isn't playing Helen of Troy, if she's playing Calypso instead, I would not mind that casting. Because Calypso is meant to be, or her island, rather, is meant to be on some of the parts of the Mediterranean that are closest to Africa, so that wouldn't bother me. It also wouldn't bother me if she was playing Cersei, although I would again prefer if Cersei were somewhere in the vicinity of Mediterranean in ethnicity. But like there are definitely characters that Lupita Nyong'o can play without it being of issue. I just don't think Helen of Troy is one of those. But then again, like the article has repeatedly mentioned, we haven't figured out who she's playing yet. She might even be playing a
Hey, Dawn.
side character. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, not been confirmed. Helen. Okay. An adaptation of one of the first stories in human history, the Odyssey, follows Odysseus, played by Matt Damon. We can go into that if you want to.
Still can't see him as. I still can't see him as Odysseus. I genuinely think that in this particular case, it would have been smarter to go with unknown actors for the Odyssey.
Look, I don't know how this could be done, but again, I've seen people make mention that to kind of play off of Troy, right?
Mm.
Sean Bean as Odysseus because he played that character in Troy.
It would have been a nice Easter egg, yes.
Honestly, I could also see it. Like he's got that. He's a fantastic actor anyway, so it's like.
Yeah, and usually when he's acting, he's playing the smart guy. Which isn't to say that Matt Damon can't do that, because I mean he was the botanist, I believe, in The Martian.
Yeah,
the main character. So like, it's not entirely out of left field, but I just I can't see him as Odysseus.
I think the issue is most of the time he plays like very like everyman kind of characters usually. So
Yeah.
you can't really see him. I also
he's not as well known for playing the smartest person in the room. But if there has ever
it's not that. It's not that. That's not my issue.
Go ahead.
He doesn't have that kind of regal, kingly vibe. Now again, I know Odysseus is very much like a genius and not like how to. To be fair, I've not really read the Odyssey in its entirety, so nor the Trojan War, I suppose.
The Iliad is the play the epic that talks about the Trojan War. I will send you an audiobook for the Odyssey, actually, because Stephen Fry did a kind of layman's version.
I think you sent that to me already.
I may have, but I will make sure it's still there and or send it to you again at some point.
Yeah, I cannot see him not being I just can't see him being like a king of Ithaca or anything like that.
My issue is I can't see him as the smartest person in the room. And if there's ever been a character in the history of literature that must be the smartest person in the room,
well,
it's Odysseus.
He's also going to be the dumbest motherfucker possible as well.
Well, egotistical and short-sighted is the thing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, this would be typecasting. It would, but I can see it, especially given that Tom Holland is playing Telemachus, which is another case of I can't really quite see it.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, if they could get Robert Downey Jr. in as Odysseus, I could definitely see it. And we know he can do accents other than his own because he did it famously in the Sherlock Holmes movies and also in the Charlie Chaplin biopic there.
Anyway, should we move on? Or?
Yeah.
There. Through the incredible trials and mythical encounters based on his decade-long journey home to wife Penelope after the wasn't it 20 years? Or no, it was 10 years for the Trojan War, and then another 10 to get never mind.
Yeah.
But he was away for 20 years. That was ultimately.
Yeah. Which is why Penelope doesn't really recognize him when he gets home, and they have to do the bed test thing there.
All right. Yeah, that would make sense. Like, yeah.
Because when he left, both he and Penelope were quite young.
No, yeah, I figured that. Like to be fair, I have trouble remembering faces from my childhood, which is I'm 26 now, so
yeah, I really like the way they played it in Epic the Musical, the whole "Will you fall in love with me again" thing.
I get shit for not remembering people.
You seem to get shit for whatever your family members can give you shit for at any given moment, to be fair.
We're not talking about that. Premiering July 17th in IMAX, The Odyssey also stars Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, John Bernthal, Benny Safdie, John Leguizamo, Elliot Page, Himshel Patel, Bill Irwin, Samantha Morton, Jesse Garcia, William Lee, Rafi Gavron, Shiloh Fernandez, Mia Goth, and more. Also someone else I could see, Dave Patel as Odysseus.
Yeah, I could see that. Honestly, I
know he's a bit young, but
well, and in theory, depending on what you do with makeup and how you have him grow his hair and shit, there are ways to age him up or down or whatever the fuck.
I just thought he was really good as was it Gawain in? No, not Gawain. The Green Knight. He was
Gwen.
Thank you.
And you're right. Speaking of creatives that would be better at handling the Odyssey than fucking Christopher Nolan, I forgot that Charlize Theron is in here. I hope to God she's playing Cersei, please, because I know this is a movie that has its problems, but when she played the evil Queen Ravenna in Snow White and the Huntsman, the Kristen Stewart one, if she brings that kind of energy to Cersei, that'll just be too perfect. Not to mention that if Charlize Theron is playing Cersei, we will get the same actress who is, assuming that they let there be a final movie in the Doctor Strange trilogy, playing Clea, also playing Cersei, and that's something that would have been on my Christmas list when I was younger. God damn it! But yeah, I worry about the Odyssey both because Christopher Nolan is the last person in the known universe that should be adapting it, but also because as much as getting name actors is a coup for casting directors. The fact that there are so many named actors here and so many well-known named actors here, I think it's going to bite them in the ass.
All right. I think we discussed this before, but I think we discussed when we first saw the trailer, the first trailer. We had a discussion on who would like our top picks be for the Odyssey, like for director, right?
Mm.
What was yours again?
Guy who did The Northman and The Witch and
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, yeah, Robert Eggers.
Right. I can't remember.
But
I think I might have had,
especially if he could co-direct with the guy that gave us The Green Knight. Those two working together would be fucking amazing.
Yeah, would either like. Okay, I think I was like tied with like 3. David Lowery.
What did he do? I forget.
It's Green Knight.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Another person I might add to the trifecta if we're allowed to do like multiple directors would be the guy that did Midsommar.
So you're being greedy. Okay.
Well, not only because I'm a greedy bastard, although I am. It's a family trait of the Mortimers. We are greedy bastards. I think that Robert Eggers and fuck is his name that does Midsommar and Hereditary and fucking.
Okay, I'm not looking them all up, dude.
But those two working together, I think, could really play to each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses really well.
So, can I list mine?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, David Lowery was one of them. Like, just overall, I'm not saying any co-directing. Like, this, for me, because for some reason, Dolan thinks co-directing is a whole thing. I'm just speaking, like, guys who would do it themselves, right? Like I said, David Lowery is one of them. Because I do think he's kind of a good mix between, like, kind of the realism and the surrealism for these kind of old tales, right? If Green Knight's to be anything to go off of. And another one, just because I really like these movies growing up, and I think it's a good blend of both dark, action, historical, adventure, with also like the mysticism. Gore Verbinski, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, and several other things. Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I'm still here. My cat needed my attention.
Yes, very much a you, cat. Okay. Yeah, I honestly, I'm kind of leaning because Dylan had mentioned David Lowery first. I would kind of go more lean towards Gore Verbinski because I really do think, for one thing, given how he's kind of
He's done big mythological epics and sailing movies, which is, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And hell, Calypso was a character in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, who is the same goddess that Odysseus winds up spending, I want to say 7 years with, although that might have been Circe.
I don't know. It really depends on the version or translation. So, but I also think it's like it would be visually stunning on the fact that he makes the effort to make sure everything looks good. Like it's not going to be pumped out,
Yeah, he can do epic and historical at the same time, which is what you want for the Odyssey.
Either that, or just make it really fantastical,
Yeah.
Which is again something you really want.
which
kinda
al-
shame.
which,
Sorry, it's
which
just like
also again makes Christopher Nolan the least good at this of any director you could name.
now I'm also thinking I kind of wish Gore Verbinski got kind of a bigger name after Pirates of the Caribbean because it does seem like he kind of. I mean, he still makes movies and stuff, which aren't bad. It's just like he doesn't really get the recognition I think he deserves after.
I think because a lot of his goodwill got soured by the Lone Ranger.
I honestly didn't think that was that bad.
No, it's not that bad, but for whatever reason that basically kind of nuked his career. Apparently Cure for Wellness, which was the last Gore Verbinski movie I remember watching, didn't do very well financially either. So he's kind of in a weird place in terms of his cachet as a director.
Yeah, also
Darren Aronofsky might also be cool. Speaking of people who can do epic and historical at the same time, Darren Aronofsky, who famously did Noah a couple of years ago.
it was 2009.
God, I'm old. Shut
Yes,
up.
you are. Giant Turtle of the Odyssey is a bit wild when you think about it. It's like the hero being named Djiboutia, so we call it the Djibouta.
The 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 Greeks did that a lot. Like, there's a sequel to the Odyssey that follows Telemachus. It's called the Telemachy. And the story, Hesiod's retelling of the story of the war between the Greeks and the Titans is called the Titanomachy. So yeah, the Greeks did that a lot. Just main character turned into a noun.
And something new every day.
Mhm.
All right, moving on. Next thing. Again, Dalton sent me this.
Mhm.
Again, from Deadline.com. BBC. It's written by Jen Cantor. Published January 29th, 2026. BBC told to avoid clunky, colorblind casting and preachy anti-colonial storylines in drama series.
Finally, you shouldn't have needed to have been told that, but finally. Moving on.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just. Okay. The BBC has been urged to rethink colorblind casting, tokenism, and preachy storylines at the UK's colonial history in scripted series, according to a major study commissioned by the broadcaster. Okay, I think obviously the way that is being presented is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also worry this could be misconstrued and over as studios like this are tend to do, which is overcorrect. Because I think we can both agree, like the best stories from which, well, this article is mainly tied to, well, a lot of the series like they've written that are very hyper, that can be very critical of things that are happening. I how to best say this. Again, it goes back to the saying I've said. I don't mind when stories are political, so to speak, but more so when it's actually more displaying something and showing what it is rather than telling you how to think about it. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. My thing is, especially when you're doing like a historical drama, you can't really get away with racially blind casting. If you're creating a historical drama like something along the lines of Pride and Prejudice or a Dickens novel or something like that, there just simply were not people of those races in the British Isles at that time period.
Or, and I feel like you might have a disagreement on this with me, but if you do that, then it kind of does have to kind of be a central point or something that is brought up. If you do cast an actor who technically wouldn't have been around at that time, right? Which does kind of drastically change the story a bit, which could be interesting if you're willing to like do that. But then again, that does run the risk of basically not being it's complicated. I'm gonna be honest. It's like a complicated issue to talk about running this.
I think you're being a little bit overly charitable here. Mind you, I'm specifically talking about historical dramas, like dramas during a specific period of time, or stories that center on a particular period of time. When it comes to like sci-fi and fantasy and all those other like when it comes to genre stuff, then yeah, I don't care. It depends on merit, but when you're specifically trying to evoke a particular atmosphere of a particular time period, you kind of have to prioritize historical accuracy over what you want. And there are stories that let you have it both ways. Like one of my favorite things the BBC ever did was their adaptation in like I want to say 2011 of Susanna Clarke's epic fantasy, or I shouldn't say epic fantasy because that's an actual genre, but her epic historical fantasy, epic in a descriptive sense. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. One of the main characters of that is a black servant by the name of Stephen Black. So it makes perfect sense for there to be a black character in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Or if you're doing a series like The Tudors, it would make sense to have at least one black character there because one of Henry VIII's trumpeters actually was a black dude. He was a black Moor. So like there are times and circumstances where it makes sense to include those characters. But if you're specifically talking about the British aristocracy in the 19th century, then yeah, no, you're not going to get many black characters there. Sorry. And I especially hate when they do the whole racial blind casting thing when it's just as a means to beat the audience over the head with white guilt for the checks notes thousandth time today. Because all that does is make the white people feel, again, the aforesaid white guilt, or just make them angry about getting constantly lectured about said white guilt, and make the black people or people of other ethnicities have a constantly festering chip on their shoulder where they constantly feel like they need to get the gives in order to make themselves feel better. Derp. Moving on.
Jojo also couldn't type it, but there is a big difference between Northern and Sub-Saharan African. It's at best like Swedish versus Italian. I'm pretty sure they are actually closer to Arabian. As we're going to the last article.
That is also true. And although when you're talking about supernatural characters like Calypso you can play a little bit fast and loose because these characters are established who know how to shapeshift and shit. But I agree. Either don't pay any attention to ethnicity at all, or pay historical lip service to it. But you can't try to sit somewhere in the middle, unless you're doing it for reasons based on merit. Like, for example, if Morgan Freeman, for whatever reason, wanted to play Hephaestus in the Odyssey, I don't think anyone under the sun is going to give a shit about Morgan Freeman playing Hephaestus, because Morgan Freeman, by virtue of being Morgan fucking Freeman, has merit.
Alright, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Alright. Conducted by former BAFTA chair Anne Morrison and ex-Ofcom executive Chris Bent. I'm going to butcher this and I apologize so badly. Bentival. The thematic review of portrayal and representation across BBC output found that clunky depictions of race can cause more harm than good. The 80-page report revealed audience complaints about Doctor Who casting Nathaniel Curtis as Sir Isaac Newton in the 60th anniversary special Wild Blue Yonder, as well as the 2023 Agatha Christie series Murder is Easy, which
They casted Isaac Newton as black? The fuck? That just pisses me off. Why would you? It's not like there aren't fucking 17th century people you could cast as being black, god damn it. Honestly, race swapping a character like Isaac Newton just makes it seem like there aren't enough famous black characters to cast as black people, which is frankly a little bit fucking condescending to black people. It's like saying, well, you don't have any relevant historical figures of your own, so we'll give you a famously white character to play. That's so fucking condescending. Anyway, moving on.
The review noted that colorblind casting was a matter of controversy for commentators and some viewers, urging commissioners to consider their choice carefully. The report said that good intentions to increase diversity can lead to inauthentic outcomes that can sometimes be damaging to the communities they are attempting to serve. And they're actually listening to that. That is the most surprising thing here, to be fair.
Yeah. Although it took them a fucking decade and a half to get there, but they got there. Or rather, I guess I should say are getting there, because we don't know how any of this is actually going to be implemented, or if any of this is going to be implemented. They might just say, well, you're racist for pointing this out to us, just like they have done the last 10 times. But at the very least, the beginnings of the worm are turning. Finally.
Is that World with Darkness reference?
No.
Oh.
It was a reference to a corkscrew. They refer to the metal winding part of a corkscrew as a worm. They did back in the day.
Okay, but I'm no longer interested. You disappointed me with that. But okay.
Well, fuck you. Not everything can be a pop culture reference. Though having said that, I will in the future go out of my way to make more pop culture references, about which you will complain, and you will have only yourself to blame, and I have it recorded for posterity, god damn it.
Actually, in my defense, you do often try to make references to stuff I don't know.
This is also true, But Dragon Turtle can also vouch for me now. He asked for me to make more pop culture references, and so now when I do it, he can't complain.
Okay, anyway. Dragon Turtle, these are the was kings, people who say the original ancient Greeks, Chinese, and Japanese emperors, Beethoven, and I think Tesla, etc., are all black. And then turn around and tell black people what their actual history and culture was pre-colonialism. Fortunately, most humans don't care about facts or fairness, just tribalism and self-interest.
Just like I've fucking dated black people, and I can tell you that this makes me extremely annoyed on their behalf. Because what is it saying when the casting directors go, well, you don't have any recognizable black characters of your own, so we'll just race swap Isaac Newton. That's like, these are the people who bitch at us for being racist. Meanwhile, they're out here giving like passive aggressive fucking charity to black people like that. It's just, I can't understand it. Moving on.
Depicting an anachronistic historical world in which people of color are able to rise to the top of society as scientists, artists, courtiers, and lords of the realm. There may be the unintended consequence of erasing the past exclusion and oppression of ethnic minorities and breeding complacency about their former opportunities, the review said. What needs to be avoided in ethnic diversity, which looks forced and tick box, and we found our interviewees of color as emphatic on this point as those who were white.
Yeah, no one likes it because regardless of your background, it pulls you out of the story when you're sitting there thinking to yourself, wait, why is a fucking scientist of the 17th century in England black all of a sudden? But by the way, it's not just bad because it makes black people feel bad about themselves or whatever the fuck. It's bad because it nerfs the storytelling, it nerfs your ability to take the story seriously, and it breaks immersion. These things are more important than how black people do or don't feel about this. Just like white people's opinions of whether a story is insulting to them are not important relative to whether that makes the story good or not. I'm gonna die on this hill. Meritocracy is more important than your feelings. I'm glad you're finally paying attention to the black people who have been just as annoyed as the white people all the way through this, because I can tell you, having spoken at length to people like Mr. E, 2099, and Corrupt, the erstwhile co-host of this show, black people have always found this to be obnoxious and pandering regardless. But the fact that black people find it offensive should not be any more important to you than whether white people find it offensive. What should be important to you is it ruins your capability of telling stories that people can actually stay invested in. Why am I not surprised that even when they learn the lesson, they learn the complete fucking wrong version of it? Moving on.
The report said that the BBC's effort to measure representation should be done at genre level rather than a show-by-show basis. It said current measurements can lead to a sense that there needs to be a smattering of diversity in every program, which can lead to an inauthentic portrayal. It needed, in some cases, it added, in some cases, this can look clunky, particularly in scripted. Diversity in storytelling Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. This is a bit weird. Yeah, particularly in script. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, again, it doesn't. The racial component of this does not matter. The issue is it ruins the storytelling. It ruins the ability to stay immersed in the story. And that's a problem no matter how you decide to make it clunky and annoying. But as it happens, this is one of the ways in which things are usually the most clunky and annoying, so please knock it the fuck off.
Alright. Though Doctor Who was referenced, the report raised an eyebrow about the specific concerns regarding Curtis, saying that a mixed race Newton seems much less of a stretch in a universe in which the central character is a time traveling extraterrestrial who regenerates into different actors. Authors
but
Morrison.
The history of Isaac Newton as an individual has nothing to do with the sci-fi element of the Doctor. Unless you're going to make a story about Isaac Newton being the wrong race, being tied to some sci-fi element, but somehow I think that would piss off the black identitarians more than it would the white people, frankly. If you revolved an Isaac Newton story not on any of the things Isaac Newton was famous for, but on why he's black all of a sudden, or why he's portrayed as white in other contexts, I get the feeling that the Wee Was Kangs crowd are going to be even more pissed at you than I would be. But that's just pulling the there are dragons so you can't bitch about continuity errors argument. And no, you can in fact care about those things, because in Doctor Who, the elements of Doctor Who that focus around the Doctor are covered by this thing known as suspension of disbelief, otherwise known as operating within the premise of the show in question. Nothing about that premise is A, inherently absurd, or B, alters anything else about the universe that's not directly related to that premise. Again, unless you make it somehow tied to that premise. Like speaking of Doctor Who historicals, in the very first episode of Doctor Who I ever watched, which was the Shakespeare Code, they had the Globe Theatre being designed by alien witches known as the Carianites. You can do something like that, but if you do something like that with Isaac Newton's race, well, you're gonna wind up pissing off the Afrofuturists and the Wee Was Kangs crowd, probably even more than you will the white people. And if you don't explain how Isaac Newton's race being different is in any way altered by the fucking sci-fi premise, then you need to play it as relatively straight as you can. Because unless something that the Doctor did altered the timeline in some way and made Isaac Newton black, Isaac Newton being black has nothing to do with the sci-fi aspect of the premise. And thus history should be mostly unaltered. Moving on.
All right. The thematic review said, oh, hold on. Sorry, I think I might have, yeah, I did. Okay. Authors Morrison and Bentavala also warned against clunky. Did I read that?
Yes.
Clunky attempts to boost diversity in storytelling, pointing to the Christie adaptation Murder is Easy starring David Johnson. The thematic review said audiences are particularly unforgiving of this if challenges their expectations of what they have switched on to see if there's an Agatha Christie murder mystery over the Christmas period. They won't expect to be taken into anti-colonial struggles alongside the country house murder unless it's very skillfully done. There's a danger it will feel overly didactic and preachy, so that the viewer is being lectured or a point is being made heavy-handedly.
Yeah, heavy-handed writing helps no one. Unfortunately for you, the phenomena that we call social justice is very often dependent on things like clunky writing, because at least part of the aspect of social justice that everyone hates is this idea that merit in storytelling, or cohesion in storytelling, or continuity in storytelling, or basically any kind of intrinsic or intersubjective value of storytelling in social justice is thought to be a harmful social construct that must be overturned and subverted for moral reasons. So unfortunately for you, believers in social justice, solving the identitarian issue with social justice is only going to solve the most superficial aspect of the problem. If you genuinely believe that art and artistic value are intrinsically and irreducibly subjective, and that people don't become fans of things because of the qualities those things have, but because of some cultural osmosis bullshit, then you're only ever going to create shitty stories. That's only ever going to create bad writing, because, and I know this pisses you off, but artistic standards are the way they are for a goddamn reason, and those reasons are not irreducibly and irrevocably subjective. So you can't just switch and swap and skin suit every aspect of writing and expect it to get the same reaction as it would if it were written well. Merit actually exists and is, in most cases, non-negotiable. Sorry. Moving on.
All right. At the time the series aired, Johnson himself admitted that he was initially reluctant to take on the role because he's not a big fan of colorblind casting, while director Manu Gao, if I mispronounced the name wrong, I'm sorry, revealed that an allegorical story about colonialism from West African Yoruba culture had informed the opening credits in the drama. The review was informed by a survey of 4,518 UK adults, interviews with 100 BBC employees and observers, and analysis of BBC content over a year-long period to the end of March 2024. It said that authenticity was critical to content resonating with audiences, and with successful BBC series cited in the research, including Kayla Cole's I May Destroy You and Man Like Mobeen, created by Guz Khan.
And this is the fundamental issue with regards to colorblind casting. Where are your priorities for this colorblind casting? Are you being colorblind in the hopes of getting the people with the merit that might be in a different racial category? Or are you being colorblind in hopes of forcing more people of a different ethnicity into roles than would otherwise make logical sense? Because if you're doing the first one, then I don't have a problem with it. That's the same logic that lets Morgan Freeman play Red from Shawshank Redemption, who was an Irishman in the original novella. But if you're doing the second one, then your identitarian bullshit can go fuck itself, please. That's the difference. If you're being colorblind because of merit, that's one thing. If you're being colorblind because you want to get one over on Whitey, and you want everyone to beat themselves to death with white guilt so that more black actors can get roles that they shouldn't otherwise have, then go fuck yourselves. Moving on.
All right. Yonder Consulting, which undertook audience research, said, in terms of what made for poor representation across the media landscape, participants across the breadth of the qualitative sample highlighted tokenistic representation of minority groups or perceived quota filling, in which attempts to represent felt encourageous, overdone, or unnecessary.
Yeah, no one liked this. Not even the most dyed in the wool of the ideologues. That's why even the average social justice viewer can't bring themselves to unironically enjoy things like Velma, even though it does everything it possibly can to pander to them and their standards. Because frankly, social justice is so anti-merit that even the dyed-in-the-wool believers of it frequently can't bring themselves to enjoy the shit that their ideology produces unironically. Because when you subvert merit and do so intentionally, even the people that are supposed to ideologically be in favor of that can't often bring themselves to be, because whether they like it or not, our ideas and conceptions of merit are the way they are for a goddamn reason, and you can't just erase them. Moving on.
Yonder said that when on-screen diversity missed the mark, it could drive people away from the BBC. Representation alone was not enough. People also expected deep and new trail. It added, the BBC welcomed the findings and said it planned to systematically review upcoming content plans to ensure underrepresented audience groups are reflected authentically. BBC said that it would update its measurement framework in the coming months, potentially changing the way it monitors representation across shows.
Frankly, the best way you can do that is by going back to the identities don't matter, demographics don't matter position, i.e., just hire the people who deserve to be hired, and whatever the racial or sexual component of that group is, are where the chips fall where as they may. That's again, you can do colorblind casting when it's the Morgan Freeman method of colorblind casting, i.e., when it results in people who have more merit to speak of getting more opportunities. But when it's the second one, when it's the we have to get one over on Whitey because something, my historical oppression, we was Kangs, then it can fuck off. No amount of jiggery pokery is ever going to make that second one okay. Especially not when it gets explicitly in the way of merit. Because, again, social justice, bound as it is to the Frankfurt School and to the deconstructive methods thereof, seems to need to destroy, subvert, and invert as many standards of merit as possible. And whether the Frankfurt School neo-Hegelians like this or not doesn't matter. Merit exists for a goddamn reason, and the reasons why we value certain things are contingent on what those certain things are, not because of some arbitrary cultural consensus. Moving on.
Yonder said that when on-screen diversity missed the mark, it could drive people away from. Sorry. Kate Phillips, the BBC's chief content officer, said, as this detailed and thoughtful review notes, much has been. Sorry. What's been achieved since we pledged to move more BBC production and commissioning across the UK, but what is also clear is there is still more to do, both here and across the industry. We accept the challenge, and we are committed to going further to meaningfully reflect the lives of the audiences we serve. BBC Chair Samir Shah added, it is vital the BBC authentically reflects the lives of all the communities, classes, and cultures across the UK. Decision-making must happen closer to audiences if we want to ensure that everyone feels represented and that the BBC remains an engine for growth within the creative industries.
The best way you could do that is by simply making something that is universally appealing to as many people as possible by not giving a damn about their identities. The old adage of if you build it, they will come is the best way of approaching this, i.e., make something as good as you can, and then by virtue of it being good, it will resonate with people. You morons. Identity doesn't matter, especially not when it's something as basic as demographic identity. What matters is whether you have skill and talent and merit. Please focus on that. Moving on.
All right. This is from Julia Rayside, published February 6, 2026. I dare. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, the second statement in full. Subheader is he's back and he's mad as hell and also the real victim here. It's published on Substack.com.
I'm glad that someone cares about false accusations. However, I'm of the opinion that accusations like this shouldn't matter unless and until someone is convicted of it in a court of law, and unless and until it actually impacts the quality of their writing. I don't disparage Neil Gaiman because he may or may not have gotten up to some Me Too shit. I disparage Neil Gaiman as and when he has lost his fucking touch and it has made him a worse writer, which happened a long ass time ago. Moving on.
All right. Give me a second. All right, in a move none of us could have predicted, Neil Gaiman has returned to his Instagram to put us straight on a few things. Chief among them being that he is totally innocent of all allegations. Thank you.
I never really passed any judgment on whether he was guilty of the Me Too adjacent shenanigans he was accused of, and I don't particularly care. But because I am also a men's rights advocate, and because I am also a humanist in the Enlightenment era sense, it's good that anyone who's accused of anything benefit from innocence until proven guilty, and I haven't seen enough proof to convince me that Neil Gaiman is guilty of the things he's accused of, and so I have no problem in bestowing him the innocence until proven guilty that I bestow everyone with, because that's how a civilized civilization works. Moving on.
Sorry, one sec. Ugh, fuck. Alright, I've taken the words of his lengthy statement, not quite the full Brooklyn Beckham, but several screens long, and he used it as inspiration for my own interpretation of what might lie between the lines. As usual, this is parody, fair dealing, etc., etc. I am not Neil Gaiman, can you imagine? Gaiman's Instagram post can be found here or in the gallery below, which I am looking at the gallery currently. Okay. So Neil Gaiman's statement is, it's been a while since I posted anything anywhere, but I didn't want to let any more time go by work without thanking everyone for all your kind messages of support over the last year and a half. Learned firsthand how effective a smear campaign can be. So to be clear, allegations against me are completely and simply untrue. There are emails, text messages, and video evidence that flatly contradict them. These allegations, especially the recent really salacious ones, have been spread and amplified by people who seemed a lot more interested in outraging any clicks on headlines rather than whether things are actually that had actually happened or not. They didn't. one thing that's kept me going through all this madness is conviction that the truth would eventually come out. I expect that when the allegations were first made, there would be journalism, and that the journalism would take the mountains of evidence into account, and was astonished to see how much of the reporting was simply an echo chamber and how the actual evidence was dismissed or ignored.
Okay, here's a couple problems with this. One, Neil Gaiman is a dyed-in-the-wool social justice monger, and I know that he called out other people who got Me Too during #MeToo. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy there. Two, Neil, are you honestly telling me that in the year of our Lord 2026, you are expecting journalists to actually report reality instead of their echo-chambered biases? Because if that is what you are saying, Mr. Gaiman, then I must now laugh in your face. Because as those of us here on the interwebs have known for a very, very long time, never trust a journalist ever to do anything except spout their own personal biases. There are exceptions to this rule, people like Anonymous, people like Andy No, etc., so on. But especially when you're talking about a mainstream pop culture journalist, if you honestly are telling me you expected mainstream pop culture journalists to not throw you immediately under the bus because of #MeToo, then you are woefully out of touch and have not been paying attention for at least a decade.
Oh, no, that I just hit my elbow on my lamp.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just like a tap. I wasn't paying attention, and
Okay.
it wasn't hard. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. I was a journalist once, and I have enormous respect for journalists. So I've been hugely heartened by the meticulous fact and evidence-based investigative writing of one particular journalist whom somebody recently brought to my attention, who went under the name of Technopathology. I've had no contact with Technopathology, but I'd like to thank them personally for actually looking at the evidence and reporting what they found, which is not what everyone else has done. If you are curious about what they've uncovered so far, the clickable link in my bio takes you to really good investigative reporting.
Okay, Neil, in the immortal words of Adam Savage, there's your problem. You had respect for journalists in 2025 and 2026. Do you understand now why that was a mistake? Why that was optimistic but foolish for you to do? And do you understand now that any real journalist or any real journalism that takes place in the year of our Lord 2026 takes place on the back of independent, non-mainstream, non-establishment journalists? Because I'm hoping that is the lesson you take from this. But because I know you well enough to know that you're a dyed-in-the-wool social justice monger and have been for decades, Neil, I'm guessing you probably won't learn anything broader from this lesson. You will not realize how often the mainstream media has lied to you in general. You will not realize how bunk the very idea of #MeToo was. You will not go on to disavow several of your previously espoused opinions. I put it to the audience that Neil Gaiman, as much as I wish it could be otherwise, probably only thinks that he and he alone was persecuted by the Me Too attitude, and still believes that everyone else he's ever accused of being guilty is guilty. I'm betting that Neil Gaiman is going to be committing a one rule for me and another rule for literally everyone and everything the fuck else. But I could be wrong. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he learned his lesson. I hope he no longer considers himself an intersectional feminist. I hope he no longer considers himself a journalist or aligned with journalism. I hope he learns that independent journalism and independent commentary is better than establishment journalism and commentary, but I wouldn't put my money on it. Moving on.
General way I say it, if he did cancel other people, then fuck you, even if innocent, live by the dishonest sword and all. I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, and that's a large part of why I'm saying what I'm saying. I hope that Neil learns that cancellation is bad. I hope that Neil learns that social justice were never the good guys, or at least are not the good guys anymore, if they ever were. I hope that he learns to assess what the mainstream media and journalists tell him with scrutiny, but I don't think so. I think he's going to operate on the premise of, I was falsely accused, but no one ever in the history of ever has been other than me, which is just flatly wrong.
Right.
And yes, he did support other people being Me Too'd, and so there is a little bit of comeuppance in this rigmarole. I can be consistent in my desire that anyone who is falsely accused should be vindicated in their false accusations, because fuck false accusations. But Neil supported the disavowal of people like Justin Roiland. Neil supported people who have been Me Too'd before and probably even after this whole rigmarole has been said and done. So yeah, I hope against hope that Neil Gaiman learns his lesson, but he's probably not going to. Probably going to be one rule for him and another rule for everyone and everything the fuck else. Moving on.
So that plays devil's advocate. You get falsely charged with murder. You don't assume most of the other people are. Most of the other people also are. Says Giant Turtle.
Mm.
Alright, moving on. It's been a strange, turbulent, and occasionally nightmarish year and a half, but I took my own advice. When things get tough, make good art. And once I was done with making television, I went back to doing something else I love even more, writing. I thought it was going to be a fairly short project when I began it, but it's looking like it's going to be the biggest thing I've done since American Gods. It's already much longer than the ocean at the end of the lane, and it's barely finished wiping its boots and hanging up its coat. And I spend half of every month being a full-time dad, and that remains the best bit of my life. I didn't know you had kids.
Yeah. He has kids. I'm glad he's getting back to writing. I wish he could have had this realization before he got the showrunners for the American Gods TV show fired after season 1, considering that American Gods season 2 and 3 would have been better under their tenure. I would stake my reputation on the fact that American Gods seasons 2 and 3 would be better under the jurisdiction of the same duo that gave us Dead Like Me and Hannibal than they did after said showrunners got booted, and booted largely at the behest of Neil Gaiman pulling his I'm the author card. But yeah, I'm glad he's getting back into writing. I hope that he learned any and all lessons from this that he needed to, and I hope that he can get back in touch with the Neil Gaiman from 1990 or thereabouts, and leave the Neil Gaiman of the 2020s and 2010s behind. But I'm not holding my breath. I have seen too far beyond the veil of Neil Gaiman and realized how much of a hack he kind of always has been, to uncritically examine his next new project. That being said, I want to be wrong. I hope to be wrong. And if I am wrong, I will become one of the defenders of this new project, just like I have for The Sandman, just like I have for American Gods, just like I have for Neverwhere and all the other great Neil Gaiman products that I have enjoyed and consumed over the years. But that being said, I've also seen Neil Gaiman shoot himself in the foot too often to believe that he's ever going to become that young, hungry, actual artist with more to prove than he has to grandstand on anymore. I wish I could put it back the way it was, but I can't. But at least his year in the wilderness may have reignited some kind of spark of creativity. Moving on. Moving on.
Last part of that. It's a rough time for the world. I look at what's happening on the home front internationally, and I worry. I'm still convinced there are more good people out there than the other kind. Thank you again to so many of you for your belief in my innocence and your support of my work. It has meant the world to me, Neil.
Again, I was willing to give you benefit of the doubt because innocent until proven guilty, and I was willing to extend to you the same courtesy as I extend to everyone who got hashtag me too, but you didn't, Neil. I hope you learned your lesson. I hope this year in the wilderness has taught you something. But I sort of doubt it, because you've been an absolute asshole for almost 2 decades, Neil. I wish that weren't the case, but it was the case. Yeah, moving on.
And here's my attempt at, okay, this is the author of the article now. Here's my attempt at translating what I think he means. Oh boy.
Oh dear. Go ahead.
It's been a while since I posted anything anywhere, and I didn't want to let any more time go by without reasserting my innocence and making it clear I still have many supporters. I've learned firsthand how effective a thorough investigation containing multiple testimonies of women who say I've harmed them can be. So to be clear, the allegations against me are beyond annoying. There are emails, text messages, and video evidence that flatly prove I had those women exactly where I wanted them, doing exactly what I told them to do. These allegations, especially the really salacious ones, have been spread and amplified by people delighted that the long-standing open secret about my behavior is finally out. Something about clicks on headlines being more important, so you don't think too deeply about the real-life flesh and blood women who came forward. One thing that keeps me going through all this madness is my total and complete self-illusion, coupled with a narcissistically necessary inability to reflect inwards on whether any of this might be my fault. I expected that when the allegations came out, there would be journalism, and that journalism would take the mountains of evidence into account. What I did not expect was they would take the word of some deliberately chosen flaky chicks over me, the Dark Lord. The actual evidence, my evidence, was dismissed or ignored.
That may be one of the single most wrong-headedly evil and stupid things I have ever heard.
It's not done.
Oh God. But in short, I'm not gonna sit here for the next 2 hours explaining everything that went wrong with that sentence. But in short, you appear to be saying, author of this article, that accusations of a thing are equivalent to proof of that thing, and that you don't care or don't understand or don't know about this thing we call innocence or proven guilty. I have my issues with Neil Gaiman. I think he is a self-sabotaging hack more often than he is not. I think he has lost much of his artistic talent and much of his favor from any entities that might be his quote-unquote friends on the other side. I think that he very much deserves to be reassessed and that he is not as talented as many of us believed him to be. I do, however, believe in this premise called innocent till proven guilty, and so I will remain as skeptical of his accusations, which are accusations and do not by themselves constitute evidence, as I have with everyone who got Me Too'd, because of this thing we call innocent until proven fucking guilty. And until Neil Gaiman is put in front of a judge, either in a civil or criminal case, and the evidence against him and for him gets weighed up against each other, I'm gonna react to Neil Gaiman in the same way I reacted to Johnny Depp, and in the same way I reacted to Castlevania guy. I always get these two mixed up because I can never remember if it's Garth Ennis or if it's Warren Ellis. I think it's Warren Ellis. But yeah, I've been consistent this entire time that accusations do not constitute by themselves evidence, no matter how many people are on the same bandwagon or how many different accusations of the same thing happen over and over again. So I will, with the fullness of my chest, remind you of this thing called innocent or proven guilty, despite the fact that I have long since been disabused about the artistic merits of one Neil Gaiman. He may be a shitty artist, but that does not mean he deserves to be seen as a rapist. Moving on.
All right. I was a journalist once, and I have enormous respect for journalists who write positive things about me. Something here about an online blogger who has said nice things about. I have had no contact with them, but would like to thank them personally for their spontaneous and thorough investigation. I would never, for example, contact former friends and ask them to leak positive stories about me to the press. No, sir. It's been a strange, turbulent, and occasionally nightmarish year and a half while I have been totally out of control of my own narrative. I took my own advice: when things get tough, make good art. And once all of my television projects had been shelved or fired me from any involvement, I went back to doing something else I loved even more: writing. Remember how much you loved my writing? I thought it was going to be a short project, but it looks like it's the best thing ever in the world, bigly. Better and huger than all of my other things you love put together. Come on, just come and look in the back of the van for a second. Cute puppies. And I spend half the month being a full-time dad because my son needs to know how to train women to serve him as their master too. Jesus Christ, you are such a vindictive little bitch.
Yeah, the phrase evil cunt springs to mind. And again, you are presupposing that he is guilty of everything he has been accused of without any legal proceedings on the matter, without any trial, without any criminal investigation, without anything. You are essentially taking the word of the women who allegedly were victimized by him as read without any deeper amount of critical thinking. Whatsoever I may think of Neil Gaiman's talents or lack thereof, especially in these later years, there's a difference between saying that Neil Gaiman is a bad artist, which, especially in the latter decades of his life, he has definitely become. And there's definitely an argument to be made about him being a moralistic social justice hypocrite, which is annoying and insufferable. But that doesn't mean I want to see him falsely accused of being a serial sexual assaulter. And I'm certainly not going to presuppose that he's a serial sexual assaulter without his day in fucking court. Because we live in a civilization with these things called innocent until proven guilty and reasonable doubt standard. And neither of these standards have been satisfied. So I don't think he did it until I see some evidence of him actually doing it in an actual court of law and not just a court of public opinion. I'm not going to lynch someone just on the basis of someone else's opinions of him. Moving on.
It's a rough time for the world without me as its savior. I look at what's happening to my creation and I worry. I'm so convinced there are more good people who don't question me or my behavior out there than the other kind. Thank you again to the millions and millions of faithful acolytes for your blind faith in me, no matter what some plainly cuckoo bitches say. It's meant the world to me. I have to go now as Bear Grylls is baptizing me in the Thames at 3 blessings, Neil.
I was worried I was being overly harsh to him earlier, but I hope it can be fairly demonstrated now of what unfair criticism looks like. Because holy fucking hell, presupposing that everything he's ever been accused of, not to mention like presupposing malice on his part for fucking everything. Like even if he were guilty of the shit that he's been accused of being, I'm not going to then presuppose malice in every context. As much of a disingenuous hypocrite as Neil Gaiman can sometimes be and has been, I'm going to accuse him of wrongdoing as and when he can be demonstrated to have been engaged in wrongdoing, and give him at least neutrality when he's not being accused of wrongdoing. Like, again, I have my issues with him, and I hope that in the course of my criticisms of him, it can be fairly demonstrated that my faith in him is not blind. There was a time in my life when I thought much higher of Neil Gaiman, and my faith in him might have been considered blind, but not for the last several decades. I don't have blind faith in Neil Gaiman. I do have a principled stance about the idea of reasonable doubt and also the standard of innocence until proven guilty, and so I will enforce those standards on my thinking unless and until he can be demonstrated in a court of law, either civil or criminal, to have done the things he's accused of. And if no one is going to even attempt to get him in the court of proper law and is more than willing to just believe he's the worst possible version of himself in the court of public opinion, then those people can go fuck themselves. I don't care if I have issues with Neil Gaiman. There's a difference between having issues with a person and accusing them of being a fucking rapist on nothing but the word of the alleged accusers. Anyway, moving on.
Well, this clears everything up. I'm sure the women across decades will be feeling pretty silly today for making up all those stories about him.
I'm not going to say that the women who are accusing him made up stories, because there is such a thing as a genuine misunderstanding. I'm also not going to legitimize everything they've said, because again, unless and until those sentiments in the court of public opinion can be backed up by the court of law, I'm not going to say that he's guilty of shit. And unfortunately, there is this thing called bandwagoning that frequently happens in the aftermath of moral panics like #MeToo. And it is at least somewhat telling that they waited for a decade or more in a larger plurality of the cases, and that they didn't decide to carry this through in either civil or criminal law. That does make me somewhat skeptical of anyone accusing him of anything. That being said, though, because of this ideology that the police aren't to be trusted and that the police are just stewards of the establishment, I understand that histrionic ideological morons do have a disproportionate skepticism of the legal system. But that being said, if you don't accuse him in the court of law and the investigation doesn't take place in the court of law, then I can neither confirm nor deny your position. And I remain skeptical because if your accusations were sincere, one, they probably would have come out somewhere closer to the time that they were accused of happening, and two, they could be done in the court of law instead of the court of public opinion. That being said, I agree, Dragon Turtle. There is a certain level of of pattern recognition with regards to male feminist, which Neil Gaiman very much considers himself to be, despite being apparently self-aware enough to make one of his villainous characters named Richard Maddock also falsely call himself a male feminist. But as I have said many times before and will say many times in the future, it seems that Neil Gaiman can make biting commentary like that without ever learning his lesson or ever projecting those ways of thinking onto himself and wondering why he should, not abide by those rules himself. But again, that's more down to Neil Gaiman being a hack and a bad writer than it is to him being a rapist or a sexual assaulter. These are very different statements. I do think Neil Gaiman is a hack who doesn't learn his own lessons. I don't, however, think that until the court of law, either civil or criminal, proves me otherwise, that he is a sexual assaulter of any description. Moving on.
All right. This is from Gizmodo.com. Neil Gaiman denies the allegations against him again while announcing a new book published by Cheryl Eddy, published February 3rd, 2026. The disgraced creator of The Sandman and Good Omens released a new statement after nearly a year of silence.
And again, like I said before and shall say again, frankly, when it comes to artists, I'm more concerned whether they can make good art than whether they are a moral person outside of their capacity to make art. Although it frequently baffles me how Neil Gaiman can write stories like The Sandman, where, for example, the character Richard Maddock repeatedly rapes a muse while calling himself a male feminist in the public eye, and not ever seem to learn his own lesson, because of course Neil Gaiman also refers to himself in many cases as either a feminist ally or a male feminist. And again, I would question the self-awareness he must lack there, but that is not germane to whether or not he did any of the things he's accused of doing. That just makes him an idiot with no self-awareness and a hack writer. But you can be a hack writer without being a rapist. Moving on.
Sorry, Good Omens fans, but this isn't the Neil Gaiman adjacent news you were hoping for. While devotees of the Prime Video series wait for an update on that finale special that replaced season 3, the series' controversial co-creator has emerged for a fresh denial of sexual misconduct allegations against him. In addition to forcing Good Omens to recalibrate its final season, the allegations also led to what sure felt like the cancellation of Netflix's Sandman, depending on who you ask, among other suspended projects.
I haven't watched Sandman season 2, mostly because I don't want to watch my favorite. I don't really want to watch my favorite comic ever made get butchered again. Especially because, given that they got through most of the one-off stories in the supplementary material of season 1, the only things that they have left, or would have had left, are Season of Mists and the Wake storylines. And I really, really despise the Wake storylines just by themselves, let alone what Netflix was going to butcher them into. They butchered most of the good aspects of The Sandman in season 1. So, yeah, I haven't watched the Netflix Sandman season 2. I am kind of grateful that it got ended before being too much of an issue. That being said, I would have preferred if they had just ended it with season 1, because God, Netflix Sandman was shit. Anyway, moving on.
Variety calls attention to a new statement from the audio author, which is very defensive, but also catches a slight reveal of a new book. He calls the biggest thing I've done since American Gods. Presumably, he's had a lot of time for writing since he hasn't been in the TV sphere for a few years now. Going by this newest communication, he hasn't wavered one bit on maintaining his innocence, despite the accusations made by a former babysitter and other women, investigated in a New York Magazine Vulture article, as well as a 7-episode Tortoise Media podcast series. Prior to Monday, his most recent address on the subject came on January 14th, 2025, in a blog post entitled Breaking the Silence.
You say he hasn't changed his opinion on his innocence despite the accusations, as though accusations by themselves constitute evidence. And I will say this as loudly and as often as I have to. Accusations by themselves do not constitute evidence, no matter how many of them there are. Because of this thing called moral panics and this thing called bandwagoning. The amount of accusations there are of something do not constitute evidence of that thing. Accusations do not by themselves constitute evidence. If you have other evidence, if you have, for example, a trial record of him being examined in either the civil or criminal court system, those I will look at. But accusations by themselves do not now, nor shall they ever, constitute evidence, no matter how many of them there are. Piss off. Moving on.
The February 2nd Gaiman statement is titled "Thank You," and you can read the. It's been a while since I've posted anything anywhere, but okay. Goes on to write that he thought the truth would eventually come out, citing a pro-gaming Substack author who has defended him. Then comes the book news. Strange advised. Okay, this is again the same thing we wrote. Whether or not folks will embrace a new novel from Gaiman remains to be seen. For now, most everything he has involved with in the adaptation sphere is either ended or being canceled. That includes the Netflix series That's Sandman and Dead Boy Detectives, Disney's The Graveyard Book, a stage play Coraline the Musical, Gaiman's work with Dark Horse Comics. There are also 2 Influx projects, the previously mentioned Good Omens Send-Off and a Prime Video series based on Anansi Boys.
See, I'm of 2 minds on this, because again, Neil Gaiman, especially in the latter decades of his life, is kind of a hack, and every adaptation he's been directly involved with has left a lot to be desired. That being said, I don't think he should be punished artistically for things that were done in the moral realm. I don't think he should lose adaptations of his work on the basis of his morality. And I certainly don't think that you should stop something as potentially lucrative and potentially interesting as a Coraline musical, which I did not know was about to be a thing, but I want it more than anything you could possibly imagine, now that I know it's a thing, because of something that the author did. Like, are you telling me, actually these people are the sorts of people who would probably tell me that because H.P. Lovecraft had bizarre racial beliefs, therefore we can't adapt any of the Cthulhu mythos ever again? Because no, that's not a thing. You could and should stop Neil Gaiman from adapting his work to other media, because it seems like every time he revisits pre-established work of his, it gets worse. But you're not making the argument on artistic grounds, you're making it on moral grounds, and morality and art do not cross over necessarily. They're non-overlapping magisterium. like, no doubt there are some authors who can simultaneously be a morally good person and a great artist, Tolkien being a good example. But if we burn to the ground every artist who was a bad person in their private life, then we're gonna lose like 90% of all art. And that's not worth it.
Moving on, or
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Alright, Go Woke, Go Broke. New study challenges claims progressive films flop at the box office. It's from The Guardian originally. It's written by Andrew Pulver, published September 2025.
Yeah, somehow we missed it back in September. I apologize. I was asleep at my post apparently.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't know why it didn't. I don't know why it didn't make the rounds until like just this last week. But yeah, I just saw somebody talking about it this last week, and I'm ashamed that we didn't cover it back in September.
Film data, the subheader. Film data analysis. Stefan Follows finds no evidence that woke adjacent cinema is doomed commercially, and claims some genres may benefit from diverse casting. Okay.
Sorry, say that again. I was reading. I was reading something Dragon Turtle said. What? Read that again.
You really can't multitask, can you?
Sorry, distracted.
Film data analyst Stefan Follows finds no evidence that woke adjacent cinema is doomed commercially, and claims some genres may benefit from diverse casting.
Yeah, but diversity alone, diversity with a lowercase d, is not enough to qualify as woke. First, you need diversity to have an uppercase D, as in almost as an end in itself, or warping art in order to turn it into a weapon of same. And two, you need the deconstructive approach pioneered by things like the Frankfurt School and neo-Hegelianism. That actually is more operative in wokeness than it is than the identitarian bullshit. The identitarian bullshit is also insufferable and should be stopped whenever possible. But at least for me, the everything is a harmful, illusionary, delusionary social construct. Everything must be framed in oppressed dichotomies, and we should go out of our way to make something as anti-merit as possible, is more indicative of wokeness than the identitarian stuff is. That's why something like Has-Been Hotel can be about various diverse characters and categories without necessarily being woke, because Diddy Pop, for all of her faults, doesn't believe that merit or fan service or fandom are bad things that should be spited at every conceivable turn. And that's why Has-Been Hotel is good, while things like The Acolyte and She-Hulk are unspeakable travesties against humanity. Moving on whenever Rainstormer gets back.
I still stand by the idea that Has-Been Hotel is not that greatly written, though. All things considered, I do agree with your points, though. I still don't think it's that great.
It doesn't have to be great to be better than the average social justice thing. Because, social justice is explicitly anti-merit.
Still, though, well, to be fair, I'm judging it on its own merit, and that's not even that great, in my opinion, but
I blame the limited episode count, at least partially, for the problem. Just the biggest problem with Has Been Hotel is the pacing. And the pacing isn't entirely within Bibbidi Pop's control because
Okay,
she originally
mm,
pitched it to have 16 episodes,
okay.
and Amazon and
Hold
A24 only gave her 8, which
on.
meant that she had to
Can
cram
I
2 episodes. Go ahead.
I could agree with you on the first season, but they spent over 2 years on the second season, which means they could have adjusted the pacing to the 8 episodes. Right now, don't get me wrong, I do agree that the more episodes would have probably helped, but I think they could have adjusted. And since it didn't in the second season, I feel like the issue seems to be more so with the actual writing. Granted, there are other issues I've had with it, and I've gone into them. I don't want to get into that now because we'll be here all night.
Mhm.
But I again, I do agree with the points he made earlier. Obviously, I think based on merit, on its own merit as well, Has Been Hotel isn't that great either. Comparatively, it is with the like you said, She-Hulk and the Acolyte. That's a non-argument there. But if we're simply
True.
discussing Has Been Hotel as on its own, then there's discussion of its own merit, I believe.
I also want to give at least some benefit of the doubt here because the story is incomplete with Has Been Hotel. I think the is Has Been Hotel good or not conversation is probably going to continue until all 5 seasons of it have been done and dusted. I'm willing to believe that the more we actually learn about the deeper story of Has Been Hotel, the better it will ultimately get.
I'm still unconvinced, but you do you.
Like I said, the true autopsy of the quality or not of Has Been Hotel will probably not be able to be done until the end of season 5. But who knows? I'm hoping that at the very least, season 3's episode length will be longer. If we must do the stupid 8 episode season thing, can we not at least have them each be about as long as the longest episode so far has been, which was season 2's finale? That was closer to like 40 minutes than it was to the 20 some minutes that the other episodes get. Because yeah, I agree. If we can't have the 16 episodes that Bibbidi Pop originally wanted, then can we at least have the 8 episode seasons that we do get have more length so that things can be spaced out and developed a little bit more? Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. All right, go woke, go broke is a movie catchphrase. Du jour. Loved by right-wing culture warriors who take aim at mainstream films judged to have adopted progressive values and therefore are worthy of boycott and complaints. Films as varied as the Marvels, Charlie's Angels, Ghostbusters 2016 reboot, and Pixar's Elio,
Elio, I think.
Elio have been attacked for their perceived commitment to inclusiveness.
Inclusiveness.
I am tired, so please bear with me.
Mhm.
And diversity, and in some cases, their box office revenue appears to have been affected as a result. Okay, can I, before you do, may I?
Yes.
To be fair, don't get me wrong, I have heard some people make the arguments on the go woke, go broke thing, and it is somewhat, it's somewhat viable. But honestly, most criticisms I've had of these movies, and even the movie, to be fair, I didn't watch the Marvels mainly because it didn't look interesting to me, and that's not because of the diversity or anything like that. It's just it didn't feel like there was something that gripped me to it. It kind of felt like an afterthought of a movie for what I'd seen of it. Um, Here's the thing. I think Ghostbusters 2016. I remember kind of watching that, and I could see certain ideas there. But again, I didn't have the. So I watched the original Ghostbusters after I'd seen the 2016 one. I mean, I watched Ghostbusters before, obviously. I'm not to compare them in my head and see the difference.
I was about to say, if you hadn't watched the original Ghostbusters until after you saw that horrifying, the awful parody version, I was about to start weeping for you.
But I compared them, and I was. One thing is, I think the actresses that were in the 2016 movie could have done a good job. They're not bad. They're not bad actors like comedians and stuff. I've seen them in other stuff, and they're good. I just feel like it was missing a certain. What's the word I'm looking for?
I can't narrow it down for you. 2016 Ghostbusters was missing so many things.
Character. Like, it just felt like a run-of-the-mill comedy. Which kind of shouldn't be the thing for Ghostbusters. Yes, it's comedic, but it has a certain brand of comedy that I don't know how to put into words.
I think I have a way of expressing it, but I will wait until you've said. I will wait until you're done.
All it really does is boil down to the merit of these things. Now, I can't speak for the Charlie's Angels reboot and the Elio, because I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay. But going through the obvious ones first. One, progressivism isn't the issue. That's why I started bringing up Hazbin Hotel in the first place. You can have diverse, quote-unquote, characters or progressive, quote-unquote, themes without it being what in the modern parlance is referred to as woke, or what back in the day from like 2013 to 2018 was referred to as social justice. And again, that's why I brought up Hazbin Hotel, because Hazbin Hotel is a perfect example of how you do a story focusing on progressive themes or diverse characters without it having the deconstructive, overtly and covertly spiteful towards the audience in general or fandom in particular that, again, in my head, is more indicative of social justice or wokeness than even the identitarian aspects of it. Also, the people who oppose social justice or wokeness are not necessarily right-wing. In fact, back in the Gamergate days of 2013 through 2016 or thereabouts, the opposition to people like Zoe Quinn and Brianna Wu and Anit Sarkeesian was largely a center-left phenomenon. That has since shifted because the people involved in it got punch drunk on, the front lines of the culture war a few too many times, and a lot of them have become right-wing. But I, for example, still consider myself a 2016 era Bernie bro. Like, I'm in favor of the Nordic model of social democracy in terms of political policy, and in terms of like underlying philosophies, I'm still in the general vicinity of like a classical liberal or classical libertarian. I still hate social justice because, again, for me, social justice is only tangentially related to identitarianism. The identitarianism is actually basically just human shielding for the deconstructed neo-Hegelian post-Frankfurt School ideologies. So much so that way back in the Gamergate days, the supplementary hashtag to Gamergate was hashtag Not Your Shield, which was people of various diverse identity groups, like myself, going, you don't get to use my identity as a Trojan horse for all these neo-Hegelian and post-Frankfurt School ideologies, you moronic hacks. But anyway, moving on.
But is it actually the case? Film data analyst Stephen Follows, an advisor of Guinness World Records and author of the Horror Movie Report, has published research on how audiences actually respond to woke-adjacent content in current cinema. Research presented at the Zurich Film Festival on Saturday. Follows research suggests there is no blanket rule for success or otherwise a progressive-themed mainstream cinema, and adds that for some genres, horror, sports, and music films in particular, diverse casting and identity-driven stories can have a substantially positive effect on commercial success.
See, that's where you're defining things wrong. Because to be woke in the truest possible sense, you need that identitarian progressivism, and you need the deliberately subversive neo-Hegelian post-Frankfurt School bullshit. And like I said, in terms of which is more important or more central to social justice, aka wokeness, I think the neo-Hegelian bullshit is more central to wokeness than the identitarian aspect is. Don't get me wrong, the identitarian bullshit can also go fuck itself, but you can have stories focused on identity or focused on progressive themes, TM, without them being woke. Case in point, Hazbin Hotel. So, Hazbin Hotel is very focused on progressivism and very focused on various diverse identity categories, but there is not an ounce of the spiteful, subversive, vindictive bullshit that epitomizes social justice or wokeness. It doesn't hate its fandom. In fact, that's one of the most unique, or rather not unique, but the most iconic aspects of Hazbin Hotel is Vivzie Pop wrote Hazbin Hotel as being pro-fandom because she also was a early 2010 style fan of various things. She made Hazbin Hotel by fans and very much for fans, to the point that many of the people who criticize Hazbin Hotel criticize it on the basis of, don't do that, you'll encourage the fans. And we can't encourage fandom. Don't you know those people are all media illiterate? Derp. Moving on.
Conversely, however, Follows concludes that big budget blockbusters face considerable risk if they indulge in heavy-handed politics, incurring a backlash if audiences feel political messaging overrides story or character. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, that, again, for me at least, in terms of my personal lexicon, that heavy-handedness, that political diatribism, that prioritizing themes and message and morality over story and character is more indicative of wokeness or social justice than the identitarian or progressivism is. That, again, that's why things like Hazbin Hotel can exist. Things that do indulge in diverse identities and do indulge in progressive themes, but don't, spite the ideas of in-universe logic, consistent continuity, depth of character, or complexity in storytelling. Moving on.
Moreover, weakening well-established characters or narratives in films such as the James Bond series carries that Follows describes as a massive financial risk. He claims rewriting legacy canon or characters is one of the strongest negative signals for commercial performance.
Yes, but that is also a fundamentally central aspect of the Frankfurt School ideologies that inform what would one day become known as intersectional social justice. That idea that ideas don't matter, that IP doesn't matter, that in-universe logic or characterization doesn't matter, and that people like things not for the merits that those things intrinsically have, but because of some nebulous blank slate social construct aspect, is fundamentally central to the Frankfurt School, to social justice, to neo-Hegelianism, and to like the broader ethos of social justice. Like I said again, progressivism and identitarianism are mostly incidental when you compare how central that is or isn't to the neo-Hegelian deconstructivist approach to wokeness. This idea that merit doesn't matter, that artistic merit is irreducibly subjective and can be deconstructed to hell and still maintain the same thing. This skin suit approach is more central to social justice than the identitarian aspect. And that's why, whether you want to admit it or not, yes, social justice, aka wokeness, is a death nail for success because it considers merit to be a harmful social construct that we have to, for moral and socio-political reasons, go out of our way to spite anyone who does care about it. Moving on.
All right. Follows main tool for identifying audience reaction to themes and content applied to around 4. I want to say million because there's like an M near it.
Yeah, I think that would be million. Yes.
To around 4 million publicly available comments and is text embedding a machine learning process that converts text into numerical values, which makes specific terms easier to identify. Follows then compare the strength of comments around individual ideas to profitability estimates to access commercial impact. After analyzing responses to more than 10,000 films, Follows concluded there was no consistent pattern to whether a film's progressive themes harmed its box office. Problems are linked to execution, he said. Heavy-handed political messaging, clumsy canon changes, or anachronistic dialogue reduce audience satisfaction and probability. Okay, yeah, no, that's actually like that's kind of what we've always talked about. Actually,
yeah, but again, that's because you're defining shit wrong. You think of wokeness based on its progressive identitarianism. But I am telling you, as someone who has spent the last several decade and a half of his life opposing wokeness or social justice, and doing so from a specifically philosophically informed position, the deconstructive anti-fandom, anti-merit, anti-characterization, anti-in-universe logic, anti-literally anything except socio-political morality is more central to wokeness and more indicative of wokeness than the progressive identitarianism. Don't get me wrong, progressive identitarianism can also be annoying, especially if it breaks immersion, which is another aspect of social justice that makes that identitarian aspect so useful to a Frankfurt School or neo-Hegelian lens, because they think that immersion should be spited at every turn because it's a harmful social construct we have to deconvert people from. But if you put a gun to my head and asked me what aspects of wokeness were more central to the ideology and more detrimental to success in that way, I'm telling you, the progressive identitarianism, incidental. The merit is a harmful social construct that we have to deconvert people from and do so as overtly and spitefully as possible. That is more central to wokeness. If you define wokeness that way, if you define it based on the overt spite for things like continuity in universe logic and consistent characterization or three-dimensional world building, then that will solve your problem. That will demystify this for you. Your problem is that you're defining the term wrong and therefore looking for the wrong thing. You are centralizing the progressive identitarianism when you should be centering the neo-Hegelian deconstructivism and spite. Because my word, I didn't know just how spiteful people could be until I started looking into social justice as a premise. God, the sheer level to which entire groups of people are motivated almost entirely by spiting and subverting and destroying from within anything and everything they can get their hands on is nothing short of horrifying, frankly. Moving on.
Okay. Okay. Was added that horror audiences who are younger on average are more open to reinvention and less resistant to changes. Citing relatively recent films such as Candyman, the 2018 reboot of Halloween, and Evil Dead Rise. Okay, first, I haven't seen. Well, I know about Candyman. It didn't look bad, but I know some people didn't like it. 2018 reboot of Halloween. Okay, that one I don't know. Evil Dead Rise, that was just fun. Like, that actually was pretty. I felt like that was a good mix of like the 2013 Evil Dead movie and like the Evil Dead, movies before, like the older ones.
I would posit this is me being hypothetical, mind you. I would posit that the reason why people care less in horror is not because people are less annoyed by social justice or wokeness. It's because the standards for horror movies are lower. Because frankly, there are a lot more bad horror movies than there are good ones. There are a lot more just generically like meh horror movies than there are good ones, and so there's less personal investment often with horror than there is with the other genres, because everyone is familiar with the practice of sending a bunch of movies, especially horror movies, to die in January. For those that don't know, January is frequently termed by Hollywood the month where bad movies go to die, because that's often what companies will do. They'll send movies they don't have faith in. They'll schedule them in January because everyone is kind of financially tapped out after the holidays. And so if studios just send whatever movies they have the least amount of faith in to January, they can blame them bombing on people not having money after the holidays instead of blaming themselves for making a shit movie. But as a result of this, there are more bad horror movies than there are good ones, and people are less invested in horror movies more generally. And also, horror movies are very much cheaper than other forms of genre content, and so you have to please a smaller audience base in order for a horror movie to be successful than you do for a blockbuster. For a blockbuster, you need as many people on board with your idea as you can get. But with horror movies, you can make them on a shoestring budget, and so the threshold by which they're deemed successful is also less. Moving on.
He said, identity-driven perspectives, diverse casting, and reimagined canon often boost appeal by adding novelty and raising stakes. In sports and music categories, Follows suggests that a number of films, including Creed 3, Rocketman, and A Star is Born, had their commercial performance strengthened by identity, narratives, and inclusive themes. Rocketman,
no. Sorry, go ahead.
Rocketman was a biopic of Um,
Freddie Mercury.
no, Rocket Man.
Oh shit, that was Freddie Mercury was the Rami Malek thing there. Forget what that was called.
Don't Stop Me Now. What the?
Was that what it was called?
Yes.
Hmm.
Rocket Man is about Elton John. You know, one of the biggest gay icons in fucking history. Which, thinking as a gay guy, you'd fucking know.
Trust me when I tell you that Freddie Mercury is a much bigger icon for the gay community than Elton John is.
I kind of feel like they're on the same. You know what? Never mind. I'm straight. I'm not gonna fucking know. So, but how the fuck I don't even know how. It's the fact that you confuse those two is baffling to me, given they're two iconic songs from two very different people.
To be fair, I think Freddie Mercury might have referenced the Rocket Man thing from Elton John, so that might be where I'm confused. But in any case, the thing is, biopics also tend to be made for much cheaper than blockbusters, and therefore there's less.
Hold on? I wasn't done.
Go ahead.
Rocket Man was a biopic of Elton John, who is pretty famous and pretty well liked, so that was going to get massive appeal, or was going to get seen. You know, a lot of people were going to see that.
Also, he was gay to start with. There was no subversion there.
Right. Also, it was played by Taron Egerton, played young Elton John, which, you know, he's always, you know, he's a good actor and people like him. So, and that was kind of, I wouldn't say that was like when he was in his kind of, when he had kind of like that big push in Hollywood at the time, because, you know, he was in Kingsman in 2014. That was kind of spring launched him, but, you know, this was in 2019, so it might have been, but Creed 3, well, it's a Rocky movie, more or less, or in the Rocky kind of universe that it is. Thus, and given the two successes of Creed and Creed 2, that movie was going to be big regardless, and like people were going to see that. And
yeah,
it actually had like two, you know, I was also going to point out it had two big names at the time. Well, I mean, still kind of big names, you know. Michael B. Jordan and John. No, he was playing Kang. I don't know why my mind is on
Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, and they put in major work for that, and it was like also I think it was like one of Michael B. Jordan's like first director credits as well.
Yeah, and also I'm in the case of Creed, I'm not really sure how you're attributing that as woke, either in the identitarian sense that you're using or in the subversive sense that I'm using, because Rocky always kind of focused on the poor and working classes. Like, that's always a thing that the Rocky movies focused on, like from the first one all the way up through. And they didn't make Adonis Creed black out of any identitarian subversive thing. They did it because Apollo Creed, his father, or the character who was, you know, retconned into being his father, was also black. So it's not in neither case is it a case of wokeness, because the working class themes that Creed focused on were always an element of the Rocky franchise, and there was no racial or identitarian subversion of the Rocky franchise in Creed because the character who was his father was always black. And here again might be you not understanding, because in addition to the aspect that I keep hyperfixating on, which is the subversion is more important to wokeness than the identitarian aspect. Wheresoever the identitarian aspect and the subversion aspect cross over, the place where it's the most noticeable with wokeness is when characters who were not previously part of a given demographic group or a different identity become retconned into that group. It's a similar reason as to why the Elton John biopic doesn't count either, because there is no universe in which Elton John was not gay. Like, he was always gay, and therefore let's take a character who wasn't gay or whose identity was ambiguous and make them gay wasn't a thing. And like I say, the same is true of Creed, because insofar as the race was important at all, it's only important insofar as the character who was Adonis Creed's father, Apollo Creed, was already black, so there was no subversive element. And again, you could make an argument for, well, it focused heavier on the working class themes, but the working class themes were always present in Rocky. It wasn't a case of forcing working class themes into a franchise or an IP that didn't have them already, which is more, again, indicative of wokeness than simply having diverse characters, quote unquote. Moving on.
Also, Star is Born. I don't know how that fits either, but honestly, I don't really know much about A Star is Born. I know there are like a few different versions of it, apparently.
I remember Star is Born, but I don't remember there being, either thematically or in terms of casting or anything, social justice elements to it. Again, I think the issue here is the person who did this study means something completely different when they talk about social justice or wokeness. And as a result, because they broadened out their definition of wokeness so much and focused on the less indicative parts of it, they're including things as being woke that don't qualify as woke. Like, they seem to think that regardless of how you got there, any story focused on a different identity group counts as woke, which, no. Moving on.
Biggest risks, however, are faced by long-running big-budget franchises such as James Bond, which is now being overhauled after being bought by Amazon MGM, with a new director and screenwriter, Denis Villeneuve and Stephen Knight, respectively.
Denis Villeneuve.
Shut up.
My hatred of Denis Villeneuve is well known, so I will not dwell on it too much, but I'm noting it for the record that nothing good can come from Denis Villeneuve. Nothing. Moving on.
Search is also underway for a new lead actor after Daniel Craig's retirement from the role. According to Follows, departing from core canon can carry serious financial consequences. Audiences react poorly when identity-driven changes are seen as imposed rather than motivated by character or story. Yeah, well, again, you're saying like shit that is just like basically known.
Yeah, and again, the thing you don't seem to realize is that forced or artificially enforced aspect is more central to social justice or wokeness than the identitarian aspect is. You can have a story that has none of the identitarian bullshit and still have it be floor-to-ceiling woke by having it spite things like continuity, character, world building, or anything that doesn't revolve around socio-political and moral themes, and especially if it explicitly spites existing fandom. A great example of something woke that has nothing to do with identity: Thundercats Roar, that thing that was so bad that Cartoon Network decided to not even air it after the reaction to it. That is a key example of how wokeness doesn't have to necessarily have anything to do with progressiveness or identity. That is a perfect example of destroying everything that everyone who's ever liked Thundercats, whether it be the 80s one or the early 2010s one, like about Thundercats, and explicitly going out of its way to piss off and piss away as much of the pre-established fan base as possible. Another great example is New Warriors. That didn't really have much focus on identity either, but what it did do was spite, subvert, twist, and warp every aspect of the New Warriors IP in the name of the author's particular pet political and moral interests. Moving on.
According to follows departing from the risks multiply when several shifts occur at once. A change bonds race, gender, or nationality on its own would already be financially risky. I don't know about race, gender, and nationality. I mean, honestly, the nationality thing would probably be the big thing.
I mean, given how central James Bond is to like the British pop cultural identity of the 20th century, yeah. Like,
I'm also gonna point this. Can I put this out?
Go ahead.
Officially, unofficially, officially, James Bond is supposed to be kind of sort of based on Christopher Lee, who was a part of the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which was effectively like the special forces he was also part of the SAS, actually. Like the first branch of SAS during World War II. He was a spy and did some crazy shit. He won't, obviously not now because he did pass away some time ago. But he was. It's been greatly debated of the novel.
Christopher Lee had such a storied life. Dude was just straight up the main character of reality most of the time.
And apparently in his old age, he played in a metal band.
He did.
Come on, that's like...
Because again, the band just had a surplus of main character energy, god damn it.
Right. But more or less, some people have contested the idea or belief that he was a major inspiration for James Bond when Ian Fleming wrote those.
I think it's at least fair to say that the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare inspired James Bond, and we do know that. We do know that Ian Fleming and Christopher Lee knew of each other and were actually friends. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ian Fleming did a little bit of fanboyism to his friend, in the same way that many scholars think that Shakespeare based the main character of his final play, Prospero from The Tempest, on Dr. John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth's court magician and astrologer.
I'm aware that some visual, at least how Ian Fleming wrote or described James Bond, might have also been from himself, if I remember correctly.
Yes, because Ian Fleming also had some ties to espionage himself, which is just, again, it's just cool how.
God, famous people used to be so cool back then.
I know. We used to have a better class of celebrities. God damn it. and we now have the fucking Twitter, or I guess in this case, blue sky morons that we have. That there was a time when people that deserved some level of fame became famous. Not always. There's always been like manufactured it guys or it girls at the moment because the corporation said so. But very often, more often certainly than is now the case, people that in some sense deserved to be famous because they had unique properties or unique qualities to themselves became famous. Your Christopher Lees, your Ian Flemings, your Vincent Prices, and that's another thing. Famous people used to have fucking hobbies and interests and things that they did that weren't just their brand.
Well, I mean, Jim Carrey paints.
Yes, and I would remind everyone for the record that Jim Carrey, however, is almost in his 60s. He may actually already be in his 60s. I don't. When the fuck was Jim Carrey born? That's a good question. Because in my head, he will always be 20 or in his 20s because I grew up on Jim Carrey movies.
He's 64.
But, yeah. So yeah, he's very nearly in his mid 60s. So I'm willing to extend Jim Carrey into the annal of we used to have a better class of celebrities.
Anyway, but stacking multiple changes compounds the danger. Yeah, no shit. Like,
yeah, and again, the thing you're overlooking here is the sort of underlying philosophy of social justice, the philosophical framework that social justice operates within, not only makes those changes likely, but considers those changes in many cases to be morally necessary according to the people that do it. Because they actively think that fandom is a moral evil and should be spited at every turn. And anyone who has a pre-established like for things not out of cultural consensus TM, but out of the qualities that those people think those IPs have, are either stupid, childish, evil, or most commonly all three. The demonization of fandom and most importantly sincere fandom, i.e. fandom that doesn't consider the IP to be a means to an end but considers the IP to be an end in itself, is evil according to the adherents of social justice. Moving on.
Alright, he adds, it represents a high gamble with billions in potential revenue. And that is it for that article. Hey, I think we should, the last article we should save for next week and move on to the trailers.
Fair enough.
It's almost midnight, so.
Yep.
Sorry, stuff's still loading, so I'm just a second.
Yep. We got through almost everything, though, which is impressive, considering we had like 7 topics tonight.
Whose fault is that?
To be fair, it's just that I kept seeing things that I felt should be added to the list. We could have saved a couple of them maybe, but we did manage to get through almost all of the topics. And normally we struggle to even make it through 4. So we're doing a slightly better batting average than usual tonight.
To be fair, they've been fairly short, so.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, so this is the final trailer for Project Hail Mary. As I will admit, this came out. Yeah, this came about 2 weeks ago, and we were just kind of busy with like everything else, so didn't get a chance to
Mhm.
cover it until now.
Did we come up with a pause word food stuff
No,
for Project Hail Mary before?
no, we didn't. It's not that I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. So just banana.
Yep.
I understand that you think I'm the right person for this mission. I understand the stakes.
Object approaching.
I think we've made it pretty clear that we're all in on this, right?
Yeah.
What was that? This is a very different tone from the last two. The first one was very mysterious, very
Hmm.
well, it's a teaser trailer, so.
Yeah. I
And
assume
the second
someone
one,
thought our final trailer should probably contain more of the story.
well, no, the second one had one too. Gave us a good amount of the story. I think it was actually kind of centered around the kind of bond between Grace and Rocky.
Mm.
And this does seem to be more about like the actual thing going on, I think.
The plot.
Yeah. Which weirdly you think it would be like either the second trailer or I honestly think the second trailer and this trailer would be swapped. But
I can't fault them for it because they clearly know at least some of what they're doing, considering how invested in this we are. So, banana.
banana.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct, including us. Dr. Grace, the world is counting on you.
I do get the feeling that it is kind of comedic, which I'm not opposed to. Honestly, we could use more levity and stuff.
Mm.
Banana or
Banana.
okay.
No, I'm sorry.
That's cute. They're mimicking each other.
Mm.
Again, I think I mentioned this before when we first saw the design for Rocky. So I thought he was kind of more like Golem-esque, right?
Mm.
He seems to be more like spider-like, seeing as he has I think it's like 6 limbs.
Mm.
But he doesn't have. It doesn't look like he has like eyes or anything like that. So it's just I'm curious at how he sees. I
Mm.
realize that's a thing. I realize it's a weird thing to notice or point out, but what would that constitute? Like their vision in a way.
Probably some kind of sensor array, a little bit like the bat sonar at the end of the Dark Knight, something like that.
Maybe.
Or maybe something like Toth seismic sense.
I think, well, we gotta look at, like, their species, like rocky species, is completely like rock crystal-like, right? Maybe like some type of refracting.
You're right. Maybe he sees via the crystals, like something about the way the crystals
okay,
are spaced allows him to get like a 3-dimensional mental picture of his surroundings or something.
Either that or like some form of well, given how like prisms and stuff work, which there does seem to be kind of building of like his ship and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how like prisms refract light and create like kind of the rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's some type of spectrum kind of vision that everything kind of has it comes across like that, you know?
I
Or it
may
could
be
be like
being
an
dumb, but I just now realized the creature made from earth and rock is named Rocky. That's I think it's meant to be cheesy, so I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but
Grace. To be fair, Grace called him that simply because, well, you know, he's made out of rock.
Okay, so I couldn't remember the other two trailers well enough to know whether that was a name that she gave to him or that he named himself.
His last name's Grace, dude.
Oh,
you are. Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't remember if that was a nickname given to him or if that was actually the name that he was given by his species. So
you are having a day, aren't you?
I couldn't remember shit from the other two trailers. It's been a while since we talked about this.
One was like a month ago.
Do you know how many things I've had to deal with in the last month?
Fair point. Banana? How you can begin dementia, you old man.
Well, fuck you. You better hope I don't have dementia. It'll wind up being a Charles Xavier and Logan syndrome or something.
That'd probably just kill you then.
Yeah, but you'd have to go all the way from where you're at to where I'm at, and in that fucking time, God only knows what havoc I could wreak. Mwahaha.
All right, moving on. Banana.
Banana.
I'm Grace. I'm gonna call you Rocky. We're here for the same reason. His son is dying too. We're gonna save our planet, so we have to learn how to communicate. Check this out. We have about 250 words. Let's find you a book.
I mean, given that he can make sound, which would be a language to his people, that makes me really curious, actually.
I assume translating between the two of them is going to be a significant part of this, kind of like Arrival.
Yeah. They do seem to figure it out quick, though. So, I mean, they're both hyper.
I assume because it's going to be more about like the building of trust between them and how their character interactions go, and you can't really do that and fight through the language barrier, or you could, but it isn't conducive to a story being watched by an audience.
I mean, there's like one. Well, there's that Star Trek episode, and there's also that one movie with Dennis Quaid, where he plays like a where he's stranded on a planet for years with a.
Yeah,
alien.
but that's what I mean. In both of those cases, figuring out a way around the language barrier is the story. You can't.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make that the premise, you have to make that basically the entire premise.
No, that's
which
fair.
is
That's
why
fair. Okay.
which is why I think they're eschewing it relatively early on in the story so that we can focus more on building the building the connections between the characters and learning about the situation and so on.
All right. Ready?
Not to mention this seems to have a much less serious tone than either of those.
Banana.
Banana.
Voice.
Why is a school teacher in space?
Oh,
Nope.
why is a school teacher in space?
Try this.
I am Rocky. I like.
So I have a new roommate now.
Hi, Grace.
Together, we're pretty smart.
And this tech is really fascinating because it also seems to be like a. Well, we see that I guess is like a data pad or something.
Mm.
It's like an easy sketch kind of with like this like gray sand here on for the screen, and it's mimicking shapes and stuff.
You mean an S sketch?
I've heard it said both ways.
I have not, and that's what disturbs me about you. But I'm
Why-
going
why-
to
I'm sorry, why the
I'm
fuck is
going
it
to
a-
attribute it as a weird Midwestern thing or something. I don't know. But the design of it's also really cool. It reminds me of if you've ever seen the movie The Last Mimsy, it kind of reminds me of that sort of like semi-organic, semi-crystalline technology there.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You would actually probably really like that movie. I'm gonna have to see if I can find it and send it to you.
Anyway,
Yeah. Banana.
But no one's ever done this before.
It is time go.
I think you mean go time, pal.
Either that or he's missing a preposition, such as it is time to go.
For this to go wrong.
yeah, even if you can speak to another person's language, the
Syntax.
phrase, yeah, is going to be different.
It's also why many European languages, when they are learning English, they'll sometimes invert the phrasing, or like the stereotypical Russian accent, the way they drop prepositions. Granted, English is a very difficult language to learn, even for native English speakers.
Hi, how you doing?
Banana.
Banana.
This ship wasn't built for this. Now!
If Grace Rocky saves stars, we can go home.
I think this is a one-way trip for me.
Okay, the more I get of Rocky, the more endearing I find him.
Hey, it seems like a genuine altruist.
He's a sweet rock boy.
You know, any other movie, I would think there's a ulterior motive with the alien or something going wrong.
I hope not, because that would really.
Well, it's
It
written by the
seems
guy.
that-
It's written by the same guy. You know, it's written by the same guy who did The Martian, right? And it's made by this movie is actually made by Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
So optimism for the win. God damn it!
We had the same conversation last time when we first
And,
watched
yeah.
it.
I'm not. Yeah. Being it's from the same guy who gave us The Martian and how optimistic a story The Martian is, The Martian might be my favorite, like plausibly realistic future. Frankly, for me, it's a toss up between The Martian and Her that I consider in terms of good possible futures that we could reach from here.
Well,
Banana.
I will not let Grace die.
God damn it. If I'm feeling something, you know you done something right.
oh yeah, you've never felt a damn thing when we watched anything.
It takes a lot for me to feel emotions in my cold black heart. God damn you.
Or is it that your life has been so bitter, sad, and destructive that you've just gotten so used to being jaded and closed off that you can't conceive the possibility that you can genuinely feel things?
Yes, and you motherfucker. Yes, and
Okay.
specifically in my case, the and is at least partially due to and I bound myself to the Queen of Air and Darkness and the Monarch of Winter. That is
Don-
sort of by definition cold and lifeless. So there's
You
that.
were like this long before Mav. Do not pin that on her.
No, I'm not pinning it on her. I'm just saying it probably is adding to the already existing thing. And in fairness, the thing that made us personality compatible enough that I was willing to bind myself to her is probably that to begin with. Yes. It's just that being bound to her makes me more of what I already am.
I only heard it and Etch a Sketch. Okay. Okay, it could just be something to be fair,
Given your weirdness when it comes to pronunciation, I'm willing to attribute it as something you misheard. But then again, I'm also willing to attribute it as some weird quirk of the Midwest. Because, well, the Midwest is fucking weird.
fuck you.
I'm not wrong, though, am I?
How close are you to the Appalachian Mountains?
Further now than I was, for the record.
How weird is that fucking place?
It can be very weird sometimes.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it gave rise to me, so that probably is anecdotal evidence in favor of its weirdness.
yeah, so think twice before you cast that stone while you're inside a glass house.
For the record, I am not. I have no problem admitting that my place of birth is weird. I don't consider it a negative thing to be weird. It's just descriptively accurate that the Midwest is also weird.
Not that weird. Because I live in a city. I don't live in a trailer park.
I am telling you, it's not that kind of trailer park, goddamn you. But
Still doesn't change the fact that you have upgraded from hillbilly to redneck. So
yeah, you city slicking cunt. Also, don't you want to move out of that city that you're so proud of at the moment?
no, it's a ghetto.
So
That's different.
what was that? What was that about glass houses and throwing stones?
That's different. You're moving from the middle of fucking nowhere to a populated area in what I would assume is basically the outskirts with a bunch of weirdos and crackheads. I am trying to move away from all the crackheads and bullshit to kind of a more nicer place, a semi-suburbs in a way. So
to be fair, given that my aunt is currently in prison for drug dealing, that there in the year of our Lord 2026, there are crackheads and drug whores all over the place. Unfortunately,
I know. I'm just saying that you're in a trailer park. That's going to be more common than you think.
again, it's not that kind of trailer park, but never the fuck mind.
Trailer park is trailer park. Don't matter how you try to describe it, man.
I'm telling you, if you could see it, you would stop giving me shit over this. But
Would I really?
But-
though?
we will resolve this someday, but it will not be today. It will be whenever we can arrange to meet up IRL.
Don, would I really not? Would I not give you shit? You really think I'd stop?
No, but you'd have at least less ammunition if you could see what it's really like. God damn you.
Would I though? Would I?
Yes. You'd have to find a new vector with which to give me shit. Just like I will have to find a new vector of giving you shit after you move out of a place that was literally condemned.
To be fair, that was just because we couldn't make payments on something, so they shut it down. That was it. Not really the crepidness of it.
Uh-huh. And you were just telling me about how your door sometimes just decides to swing open randomly.
That's when I have it closed. I don't really close it often anymore.
Yeah, but you don't close it because it randomly opens when it's closed. So again,
No, I
Glass-
don't close it. I don't close it anymore because someone will probably have to call me and I need to rush in there.
uh-huh.
Well, it kind of started like I'm not gonna get into that. Anyway, you're still a redneck though. I'm never gonna change my mind on that.
Fuck you very much.
Hey, it's better than being a fucking hillbilly, which you were up until like 2 weeks ago. So
And again, I'm telling you that it's not like that, but you won't believe me until we meet up in real life. So we will have to resolve to do that sooner or later. Of course, when we do, you're going to beat the shit out of me because of all of the various physical damages I have earned over the course of our friendship. But
anyway, so this is the story trailer for the 007 First Light video game, which is made by IOI Interactive. They're the guys who made the new Hitman game series. Which going to be taking some, which I believe they're going to take kind of some inspiration from, but also, just. We had covered the first kind of trailer a while back when it was first announced, and I remember Dom kind of being into it.
yes, I am a big fan of the James Bond franchise. I am not a fan of the Daniel Craig version because the Daniel Craig version tried so fucking hard to be Jason Bourne unnecessarily.
So I do feel like this is kind of a nice blend between like the more kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, campy, more outrageous, like with some of the gadgets and stuff, with also kind of the pseudo.
It remembers its roots as a series of like pulp detective detective novels essentially.
I was gonna say adventure, but. And there was an interview I had seen, and I still need to remember to send you that, of like the creative director for it, who was a big fan of James Bond, and even like mentioned the books and stuff, like reading them. And
I still have all but 2 of those books somewhere.
Are we talking the original or the ones after Ian Fleming?
The Ian Fleming ones, the original ones.
Okay, I wanted to be sure there because I know there's like a bunch of them that were written sort of.
Yeah,
like
after Ian Fleming. But yeah, I have all but 2 of Ian Fleming's original run of the James Bond books.
All right. So yeah, this it's only about a minute 40 long. So
Martini, shaken not stirred.
are we saying the whole thing, or we're just doing martini?
Martini.
Okay.
Bond is immature and reckless. He's a bad influence on the other recruits who inexplicably fall victim to his charm.
Look, I know where this is going. Do you mind telling me why I'm here?
Inexplicably, is that what we're calling it now? Are we calling it inexplicable?
The charm thing?
Yeah. Because I don't think it's inexplicable. I think there are many people who have devoted many video essays to why Bond's charm is very explicable indeed. Doesn't work on me because he's not attracted by my standards, but I wouldn't go so far as to call the charm of James Bond very inexplicable. I think it's perfectly
fair,
explicable. It just doesn't work on me.
Don, can I?
Go ahead.
I believe it was M reading a report about him from one of his superiors when he was a soldier.
Mm.
Because it's like an interview thing. Because I think you gotta remember, this is kind of like James Bond young before he really gets the 007 mark. Or
Right.
Code name.
Right. I just hope that M is also very sardonic about that, because no one who knows James Bond finds his charm inexplicable. It's fucking bullshit, and like I said, it doesn't work on me, but just because it doesn't work on me doesn't mean I can't explain it.
So I like the kind of mix of the kind of pulpy, because guys in like gold black mask with like firing at them and stuff, and like they're like yeah, it's modern but campy, I guess. You know, like in a way I kind of get a sense of Kingsman, which is not a bad influence for like a new James Bond to pull from. You know, like I know Kingsman was kind of a
spoof
I want to say parody.
James Bond. But
Well, it's not.
given that James Bond has spent the entirety of the Daniel Craig era trying its damnedest to get away from its roots, having Kingsman go over and reinsert the source code, so to speak, is a better scenario than most.
Although, like, don't get me wrong, I'm cool with this game, and honestly, I would probably get it and play it myself when it's out.
What console is it coming out for, or is it a PC game?
No, it's all of them, I think.
Doesn't matter because I still won't be able to play it, but
yeah, you're shit at games, so console games.
I don't have a console or a fucking PC in order to play games. God damn you!
Well, I was talking mostly about your hand-eye coordination, which you have told me directly is an issue why you can't play these kind of games.
Yes, and fuck you, but
I'm just stating a fact. What is wrong?
The thing that is mostly preventing me from playing this game is that I don't have a gaming console or PC.
All right. But besides that, I kind of wish this was the movie series, the new one.
Yeah. This feels so much more. This feels so much more like Bond than the entirety of the Daniel Craig era.
Also, given that this is
except for maybe Casino Royale, because Casino Royale was the last good Bond movie.
Also, the actor, I think I mentioned this before, who played Dexter on the prequel series Original Sin, Patrick Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's 30. I thought he was at least in his early 20s or mid 20s.
Mm.
But
He's one of those older people who looks younger, I'm assuming.
yeah.
Mm.
He's just 30 years old.
I haven't watched Original Sin yet.
I've heard it's good, and apparently he is British, and he was, he's playing like the young version of Michael C. Hall's Dexter. So, apparently he was also in a Netflix series called The OA, and he's in Shadow and Bone too. Okay. Anyway, oh no, he's Irish. He was born in Dublin.
Well, top of the morning to you, sir. I can feel wars beginning again, because I, a person of Scottish descent, said that to an Irishman. I can feel the warfare beginning.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he's actually doing a pretty good impression of a British accent, which I kind of sucks, because I honestly wouldn't mind seeing an Irish. It actually would explain a lot of like Bond's negative traits. Him being Irish, which I realize is
okay. Just for the record, any Irishman who watch this, I am not with him.
I'm part Irish. Okay, I'm part Irish on my mom's side. My great grandfather is I have Irish descent ancestry in my blood, so I kind of can't get away with saying that.
Bold of you to assume that that's going to make them treat you kinder and not going to kick your head in like it's a Eton football match.
I think people forget I'm also American, so if any Irish motherfuckers want to come at me, I am loaded, packing. So try that. I don't believe in playing fair. I believe in winning a fight. So. But no, yeah, I do kind of wish. I do wish that was kind of like the new movie series coming out, because this feels like what it kind of should be.
Whoever was behind this game understands the IP a lot better than the people currently in charge of it cinematically.
I don't think I've ever played. Well, I played it was the Pierce Brosnan tie-in video game.
GoldenEye?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I never got to finish it though. So this would be kind of like one of the first main James Bond games I've ever really played. So
my cousin had one of the James Bond games on the N64 that he left at my grandma's house.
Anyway, shall we?
Martini.
I would like you to join His Majesty's Secret Service.
You what? I know all about your exploits in Iceland.
I strongly believe that there is a need for such heart and intuition in modern spycraft. That's the very reason I'm bringing back the Double O's.
Need I state the obvious?
That's interesting, because that implies that the 00 program did exist, obviously, before James Bond, which also.
Oh yeah, it's much older than that.
No, I figure that. I'm just like, I'm curious because M says she's bringing it back, which implies that it was shut down, which makes me question
why it was closed in the first. Yeah.
That's
actually funny story. You remember how earlier I was talking about John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth's court astrologer and magician? He was also her spy master, and his number, unironically, was 007.
Huh.
So one of the first 007s of the 00s was a fucking court magician. I fucking love history, man. The old adage of truth is sometimes stranger than fiction springs to mind.
Honestly, it tends to be so much stranger than any fiction anyone's come up with lately.
At some point we should bring John Dee into the Lionhearted at some point.
We'll talk
Although
about it later.
actually, it would make slightly more sense for the Paragon universe, given the things we have with the Geo Guardians and stuff.
Don.
Mm-hmm.
Shh.
That's not
Yeah.
enough information to. That's not enough information for anyone to steal. I don't think.
I just don't like taking chances. I don't like taking chances.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, the gameplay looks good. Remember people saying it looked kind of look. I mean, if you're gonna take inspiration from stuff like Uncharted, Hitman, obviously for like the building of like espionage missions and stuff, it makes sense, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Because given James Bond and how like his adventures and stories go, having those elements from other games makes sense. You know, like.
Mm. I'm
Not saying
surprised they
don't
never.
try-
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think I've said this before, but kind of nowadays there really isn't anything quote unquote original. The best thing you can do is take elements from things and try to put your own spin on it.
I'm kind of surprised that never in the course of the Keanu Reeves John Wick franchise they tried to turn that into a game series.
Oh,
if
no,
you,
they are now. They are
if-
now,
if-
and we're don't connect.
Go ahead.
There was an announcement made at Showcase about a week ago for a John Wick game coming out. And there are John Wick video games that technically came out. They're just not as big as the one that just was announced like last week. So,
Well, as the old saying goes, better late than never. Because that's a fucking shooting game if ever I saw one.
anyway,
You could do different levels based on the different movies too, which would be cool.
I think it's supposed to be a prequel. The game I'm talking about, like it's official. Like even Keanu Reeves is voicing in mocap and John Wick. So,
Well, that's cool. But I hope at some point they do like a sequel to the game that's about to come out and have them focused on the movie plots.
I think it's I don't know. Anyway, shall we?
Martini.
Martini.
He is not ready.
James, the service is over.
You're a rare breed, Bond. I should be interested to see what you do next.
009 will employ every manner of subterfuge to avoid capture.
Try not to draw attention to yourself.
Okay, that seems to imply that the reason why the 00 system was shuttered was because one of their agents went rogue.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the main antagonist. That's kind of a through line with like some of the stuff I've seen regarding this. Like even their gameplay demo they made mention of 009. They're not showing him, which makes me curious in who they got for him. It would be funny if they brought one of the other Bond actors.
Previous Bonds back.
Yeah, to play him.
That'd be cool, yeah.
I kind of would think Pierce Brosnan because I think Daniel Craig is kind of too recent.
Yeah.
And
plus, it's been long enough. It's been long enough since the Pierce Brosnan era that he can be a nice Easter egg while also still sounding different enough that it's not a Bond versus Bond fight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Plus, in one of Pierce Brosnan's Bond movies, he was going up against the rogue 00. So
that is true. So it would be it'd be a nice Easter egg on multiple levels.
Yeah.
But,
I also like the casting here as well. Like the thing I kind of hope, and the thing I've always like kind of would have preferred a lot of the Bond movies done is show a little more of the other 00s. You know, I know it doesn't get much mention in the books as much, but you know, for one thing, James Bond has always been 007, which implies there are people of higher.
It implies there are 6 people with higher jurisdiction than he has and higher skills. So yeah, What in the who in the fuck are those other 6 people that James fucking Bond is 007?
Apparently, he has a rivalry with Six.
Mhm.
There's like mentioned in one of the books. There's a video talking about the other 00s or like crafting some theories about them.
Mm. That reminds me, there was a character in the Steve Martin Pink Panther movies that was a 00, and I think he was a higher 00 than 7. If I'm remembering correctly.
Also, I love that they have. There's an actor in here. Hold on, I'm gonna find his name. He's a fantastic actor. How much of The Walking Dead have you seen, Dalton?
Some of it. Not
Okay,
not a terrible amount, but I've seen some. Because there was a time when my younger brother was absolutely obsessed with The Walking Dead.
Okay. Okay. What about Snatch? You remember Guy Ritchie's Snatch?
Yes.
So one of the guys who is in that and played Morgan in The Walking Dead, Lenny James, he's a British actor, is in this, and he's kind of being mentor to Bond.
Neat.
I also found out I found out the guy's British too, because he played like an American in The Walking Dead, so it was the first thing I remember seeing of him in, and then I saw him like Snatch and this, and it's just like
for whatever reason, it's usually easier for British people to pull an American accent than it is for the other way around.
Huh. Be fair, depending on where you're trying to do the American accent, because there are several different variations of it throughout the country. It can be fairly easy, yeah. But yeah, this all looks really fun. Like it looks like a genuine blast to play through. Again, though, since it is a real actor, like he's a legit actor. I really kind of wish Patrick Gibson was playing like the new Bond.
But that would require the people who are being stewards of Bond to actually give a shit about Bond, and they don't.
With this, granted, it's IOI, so I feel like that's a different creative team, but still, like this.
Somewhere in a universe not too distant from this one.
Anyway.
Martini.
Me? Housekeeping, I presume?
You seem the kind of guy who knows what he likes.
So you won't do anything stupid?
Of course not. I'm not an idiot.
Agents have very short life expectancy.
Are they trying to Easter egg in the James Bond is a fictional identity for anyone who operates 007 theory? Because that line seems to kind of be leaving open the possibility that they might all be different people just wearing the identity of Mr. Bond.
Well, no, because in the first trailer for this, it makes mention that they literally mention his name as both in his like official military reports as well as like his past with his parents cutting a rope on a mountain climbing. So he is James Bond. That's his actual name here. Plus, I think it's just implying that it's given the high risk of danger in this life.
Yeah, high turnover.
He's just like
it's just it could have been a nice little nod to they're all different people theory.
I think you hated that theory.
I do, but I like fan service more than I hate that theory. If that makes sense.
It really
I'd rather-
doesn't. But
I'd rather fans be served, even if it was in a way that I don't particularly care for, than the fans fighting bullshit that's happened recently.
you're a confusing dude. But yeah,
Well, you've had almost 7 years. Maybe you'll figure me out in the next 7. Lol.
if I still can't wrap my idea about you not liking sandwiches but grilled cheese, I don't think I'm gonna figure this one out either.
I still find it hilarious all these years later that is where you draw the line.
Who the fuck? You know what? No, I'm not doing this again. Bad enough. I'm tired. I'm
Oh,
exhausted.
we'll be doing this until the day we're both dead and buried, and probably for a significant portion after.
But honestly, I think the short lifespan thing was just because again, he's just starting as a 00.
Yeah,
And
it probably is. It's just, you know, I'm sure we'll get game theorists making everything up out of that line anyway, regardless of how bullshit it is, because that's just how theory crafting is sometimes.
All right,
Martini.
And if you do get caught, we will deny ever having heard of you. How does that sound?
Oh shit! It comes out in May. May 27th. Now I'm gonna pre-order it. I'm not gonna pre-order it.
You've got 3 months.
Oh shit, May. I thought, fuck, that was next month. God damn it.
March, April, May. 3 months.
I'm tired. Okay, dude, I'm fucking tired, and most of the time, days tend to blend together for me because it do the same exact shit every fucking day.
I know.
Sorry, my perception of time is fucked right now.
I know. But I am, of course, contractually obligated as your friend to bust your balls on occasion.
Yeah, May 27th, 2026. That is seeing as this was only announced like a couple months back, that's actually kind of a really
That's a quick turnover.
They were probably working on it for a while, obviously, before they announced it, which is good. Because it
And
looks
they probably didn't have an absurd marketing budget for the thing either, so that's probably why they waited.
Even the Hitman games didn't get that much
hype.
No, they got hype. It's just like they didn't do like the big marketing camp. Be fair, video games these days don't really do the big marketing campaigns anymore.
And to be fair, the people who own the IP of James Bond have done everything they could to make James Bond less likable and less marketable over the course of the last decade or so.
Yeah, but no, I'm genuine.
people. Yeah, this looks fun. I wish the people who owned the cinematic rights would pay half as much attention. But I'm a broken record on that point.
Yeah.
Outros?
Well, no, there's still a little bit left, so.
Martini.
When do I start?
Oh, wait, you get a 24-hour early access if you pre-order it?
Apparently.
Deluxe edition. No, I'm not going to pre-order.
Well, you've got 3 months to change your mind.
I'm not. Dude, I'm not putting. Come on. It's mostly cosmetic stuff anyway. It's not really a good reason to pre-order shit.
True. It's a bad habit to get into.
Yeah, like maybe one or two things I've ever pre-ordered, and that was just for like a gun or something. Granted, it was Call of Duty, so.
I pre-ordered the Tasting History cookbook, and I pre-ordered Baking Yesteryear. No, I didn't manage to pre-order the Baking Yesteryear cookbook. It's weird that one of the few things I've managed to pre-order has been cookbooks, but
wait.
Okay, so awesome.
Is that Dylan Hollis's book?
Yes.
I love that guy. Oh shit!
Yes.
I didn't know you watched that guy. Okay, and then
I want to get his second book, but I haven't yet.
those are fun shorts I've watched from time to time. Like,
Yeah, he's fun. I sometimes refer to him as like the bastard child between Jim Carrey and Martin Short. That's what he reminds me of.
he's gay, right? Like
Yes.
okay,
He makes enough references to it, but yes, he is gay.
okay. I didn't want to assume. It's just because like sometimes they do it
he
for a
wears it.
bit.
He wears it on his sleeve. You're fine. There's no assumption. He makes jokes about it all the time.
It's just like sometimes people have done that for a bit and stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know.
But no, he's very, very gay.
Dylan can say that. I want that to be known. He can say that.
Yes, I can say that, for I also am a child of the gay. But Tish.
That sounds weird, man.
It was supposed to. If it hadn't, I would have done my job correctly. Anyway, outros.
So with that, on that weird note, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Keep it gay and fuck off.